Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto Curse of Immortality. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Death. It really disappointed my expectations I had for it. You'd think that you would be in heaven where there are angels, fluffy clouds, and halos everywhere, or be sent to hell where molten lava, darkness, and the devil cackling as he waited for you were there. But no, for me I'm in a plain white room with a man with horns floating in front of me and at the same time, asking for my forgiveness. Why are you asking for my forgiveness again? I asked. And who are you? My name is Hagoromo Otsutsuki, I'm also known as the Sage of Six Paths, and I'm asking for your forgiveness because I ended your life too early. Hagoromo explained. I see. Well, what are you planning on doing next? I asked. What? If you're asking for forgiveness, that probably means you're not able to bring me back to my old life, and there's no point in being angry over something you're not able to reverse, and so, what are planning on doing next? I asked after I explained my reasoning. Thank you, young one. He thanked me. What I plan on doing is sending you to my world, so you'll be able to live your life to the fullest. Can you tell me about this world of yours? Then he explained about who he is and the world he was sending me to, which sounds like a cool place. I think. Then he started to explain the abilities I'll be given when I arrive. I'll provide you with an aptitude for healing, medical jutsu, wood jutsu, and all 5 of the elements: fire, wind, earth, water and lighting. I'll also give you an affinity for ninjutsu, ninja techniques, genjutsu, illusionary techniques, and taijutsu, body techniques. Though you won't start out using these techniques perfectly, you'll need to train yourself to use them to their fullest potential. 39. Concerning the training of all of these things, can you make it into a status plate? Status plate? Yes, like a board only I can see, that will inform me of my status. For example, if I say status plate, said board will come out and show me my information, to titles I have earned or the overall level I'm at. I explained. That seems fair. I'll need your help in developing it though. I simply nodded, and for the next few minutes, I helped Hagoromo make the status board for me, making it like a gaming system. I also asked him to give me the skill item box. Once again I had to explain the usage of said skill and help him create it. Along with all these things, I'll also give you the affinities for fuinjutsu, sealing techniques, juinjutsu, curse seal techniques, and senjutsu, sage techniques. In addition, I'll give you the sharingan since you died in your previous life. 36. That's quite a lot of things you've given me. I sweat dropped. Indeed. If you want, I could give you a curse to balance it out. He suggested. Sure, fire away. I spoke. 6. I'll give you the curse of immortality, so that way it'll make it impossible for you to die. 0. Understood. Will I see you again? I asked. Perhaps. Now it's time to send you on your way. I gave Hagoromo a quick hug and said my thanks before everything became dark. 8. Then I slowly opened my eyes to see the sky filled with clouds, birds singing their tunes and the trees gently whispering in the breeze. I heard water running from what I could telling was a stream, and I sat up and saw there was an actual stream. I stood up and noticed that I was in a small opening, but then walked over to said stream and looked to see my reflection. When I looked into my reflection, I saw that I had beautiful onyx black eyes, pale smooth skin, and mid-back long white, silver hair. I was wearing a skin-tight black jumpsuit, and on top of it I was wearing a high-collared white kimono. It looked exactly like Hagoromo's clothing. I had also noticed that my body was one of someone of the age of perhaps 5 or 6, but I wasn't sure. That's when I thought it would be a good time to test out the status plate. I whispered the name, and then a small rectangular faded figure appeared in front of me and stated my status. 3. Name: Ayumi. Family name: blocked. 4. Age: 5. Titles: Reincarnated, Child Beloved by the Sage of Six Paths, Sharingan User, blocked. 5. Level: Chakra Control, %. Chakra Sensing, 0%. Chakra, 547. Attack, Defense, Agility, Int, 40. Luck, Max, 7. Jutsu Categories: Ninjutsu, 0%, Taijutsu, 0%, Genjutsu, 0%. Jutsu Subcategories: Fuinjutsu, 0%, Juinjutsu, 0%, Senjutsu, 0%. Chakra Natures: Fire, 0%, Water, 0%, Earth, 0%, Wind, 0%, lighting, 0%. 3. Advanced chakra natures. Wood, 0%. 3. Kekkei Genkei. Sharing on, level 3. 4. Curse. Immortality, cannot be broken. 0. Additional skills. Item box, max, super growth, max. 4. When I had a look at how much I had on my status, I could only think of how overpowered I really was, but I didn't think less of it. I dismissed the status board, making it dissipates into particles. I then went back to the small field that I had awoke from and sat in the middle of it, beginning to meditate and collect chakra. 4. It was only an hour later when I heard a ding and saw a notification in front of me. Congratulations! You're now level and your chakra control has improved by 5%. Try climbing a tree without your hands to further improve your chakra control. 5. I once again dismissed the notification after I read it and summoned my status plate to check my chakra, immediately noticing that its limit grew by 100 and that it was full. From there I went to a tree and began to climb said tree without the use of my hands. By the end of the day my chakra control had improved by 20% and I had received a notification to start water walking. Not only that, but my level also improved by another level, so I'm level 3 now. If I keep going like this, I'm going to become a monster. I only sweat dropped at my own thoughts. I could only wonder what would happen in the next few years. Well, I called it. I knew it. I've become an absolute monster. I looked at my status plate and saw the huge difference it had since I began training myself to the present time. Name: Ayumi. Family name: blocked. Age: 5. Titles: Reincarnated, Child beloved by the Sage of Six Paths, sharing on user, Prodigy, Loner, Craftsman, or Woman. 5. Level: 93. 8. Chakra control: max. Chakra sensing: max. Chakra: 57, 34, 57, 34. Attack: 83. Defense: 78. Agility: 98. Int: 64. Luck: max. Jutsu categories: Ninjutsu, 65%, Taijutsu, 99%, Genjutsu, 45%. Jutsu subcategories: Fuinjutsu, 63%, Juinjutsu, 36%, Senjutsu, 0%, Medical Ninjutsu, 56%, Kenjutsu, 43%, Barrier Ninjutsu, 68%. 0. Chakra natures: Fire, 64%, Water, 73%, Earth, 6%, Wind, 5%, Lighting, 6%. 4. Advanced chakra natures: Wood, 58%, Kekkei Genkei, sharing on, level 4. 30. Curse: Immortality, cannot be broken. Additional skills. Item box, max, super growth, max. Hobbies: Embroidery, advance, cooking, advance, metalworking, intermediate. As you can tell from my new status, I've improved a lot compared to 10 years ago. Though the title of loner did make me think about a few things, like, even though I lived in complete isolation, I still occasionally went to a small village to learn about the word around me from the books they had in their libraries. Yeah, I'm a loner. Maybe I should go and live in a village or something, perhaps. All I know now is that I'm going to start traveling to places I've never been to before. I know that I'm the land of fire, but that's it, and that's probably why my int hasn't grown as much as my other stats. Also, learning senjutsu is hard. I've only learned 0% in 10 years and I'm worried that it'll take me forever to get it up to 0%. 7. Well, let's get going. Over the years I have changed the clothing I once wore with another. I now wear this, not sure how to describe it, but Ayumi does not have pink hair. 7. As for my hair, I styled it into a thick braid and its length reaches right at my knees. 33. As for my hair, I styled it into a thick braid and its length reaches right at my knees. Covering my whole outfit is a high-collared, big hooded gray cloak that reaches to my ankles. I put my belongings, scrolls, books, clothing, food, bottles filled with water, toiletries and even the furniture that I used for my house into my item box. I made a sword that I made a few years ago and named it Benihime, sliding it into the side of my waist just in case someone had decided to attack me on my journey. I walked out of the wooden structure I had called my home for a decade. It was a simple one-story cottage. I used wood jutsu to construct it and I must admit, it was good practice. 5. Anyways, I used a fire jutsu to burn the structure to ash and I used earth jutsu to bury the remains. It was so, if someone would come across this area, they wouldn't know there was a person living here all this time. Then I walked away from the former location of my house and walked into the forest to start my journey. A few days later, I sat in a room, sipping tea, and looking out at the window to see the view of the garden. How did I get into this position? 0. Flashback. It was 2 days ago, and I was walking in the forest, minding my own business until I came upon a boy around my age leaning against a tree unconscious. I walked up to said boy and looked at him closer. He had white hair and was wearing blue armor, but what caught my eye was the red blood seeping through his armor from his left lower abdomen. 9. I quickly took off his armor that covered the wound and laid him down. When I inspected the flesh wound, there wasn't an infection and I sighed in relief. I put my hand above his wound and used medical ninjutsu on it. My hand glowed green and the wound started to regenerate. Once it was done, I pulled out my bottle of water and a rag from item box, pouring water on the rag and used said rag to clean the blood on the boy. When I was done with that, I put the bloodied rag and the now empty bottle of water back into item box and stood up. I put the armor back on the boy and positioned him against the tree, leaving a quick note telling him to rest and drink plenty of water when he got back home. I also placed a barrier around him, so wild animals and people couldn't harm him while he was resting. The only way it could be released is by the caster or the person inside of the barrier was to cast release on it. I then walked away from him and jumped into the trees to continue my journey. Once I was a while away, far enough from where the boy rested it, I finally stopped in a tree. Making sure my hood was on, I decided that it was a good idea to rest for a few hours. I closed my eyes to let myself to rest, after I set up a sensory barrier around me to warn me if someone was too close. A few hours later, I believe, I jolted awake as I was warned by the barrier that people were coming, and they were coming quick. I quickly stood up, still groggy from my nap, and started to tree jump away. When I was running away, I decided for some strange reason that I wouldn't use half of the speed I would usually use, but instead settled for just a fourth. I thought that it was a good speed, slow enough not to waste my energy and enough to be faster than them. I spent a few minutes doing this, but the party behind me were gaining distance and coming close. I finally looked behind me and the white hair boy from before was one of the people chasing after me. I had also taken notice that he had blood-red eyes. Then there was another boy that looked older than the whitehead and he had brown eyes and long hair. He was the one taking charge, I believe. Then he started to yell at me. "Wait, please wait." I thought over his words and sighed. I don't know why, but I stopped tree jumping and they finally caught up. I made sure my hood was on me when I asked, "What do you want from me?" Well, before we get to that, my name is Hashirama Senju and I'm the heir to the Senju clan. The newly named Hashirama introduced himself. 0. Senju clan? I asked, letting myself process the information. Oh, did I do something wrong? Nothing of the sorts. I wanted to thank the person who saved my brother's life. Hashirama told me. Brother? I asked. Ah yes, the boy you saved, is my brother Tobarama Senju. Hashirama directed his hand to the white-headed boy from before to confirm. Okay, my name is Ayumi. I spoke. You don't have a clan name? Tobarama asked, his eyes looking at me suspiciously. Not that I know of. I've lived by myself since a young age and never met my parents, so. I trailed off. It wasn't a complete lie, for some reason my family name is blocked on my status. I know. How about you come with us to our estate? Hashirama suggested. Brother, you can't just welcome strangers into our home. What if she's a spy? Tobarama cried. When Hashirama tried to refute, Tobarama told him to shut up, and that's when a purple mushroom cloud formed above Hashirama as he began to sulk. When I looked at their clansmen, I saw them just sigh and sweat drop at the scene. It seems like it's a common occurrence. Hashirama, you know that it's always a possibility that it could be true. You shouldn't be so trusting. From what I've heard, you guys are at war with the Uchiha clan, correct? From how tense the area around us became all of a sudden, I could confirm it. For all you guys could know, I'm just a spy to that clan. But then why did you save Tobarama? The heir questioned, and I had nothing to convince him otherwise. I knew it. You're not part of the Uchiha clan, so come with us. I looked at the others in the group and they were weary, and I tried to retort, but Tobarama beat me to it. Fine, let's bring her back. He looked at me for my opinion, I only sighed and nodded in return. Sparkles immediately formed around Hashirama as he asked me to follow him and I complied. I then tree jumped alongside them as they led me to their estate. 5. When they jumped to the ground, we landed in front of a large estate and the guards there immediately readied themselves to attack me and it took both Senju brothers to stop them. Once they loaded their weapons and let me in, I followed the brothers to a sliding door. They asked for permission to enter and I heard a rough come in sound from inside the room. They opened the door and they urged for me to come in with them. Hashirama, Tobarama, who is this girl that you brought with you? A man with a great presence asked. Father, this is Ayumi, she was the one who healed Tobarama. Hashirama introduced. She has no clan name? He asked. No, from what she has told us, she was never informed what clan she was from, since she lived in the forest in isolation since young. Tobarama explained. Tell me girl, what you know about the Senju clan? He asked. Well, I know that the clan has been with war with the Uchiha clan for many years and that your Kekkei Genkei is wood release, but other than that, I'm afraid I'm quite ignorant. I admitted. 4. I see. Then to show us that you mean no harm, will you remove your cloak? He asked. I simply nodded and unclipped my cloak and held it to my side as I stood. Hashirama, Tobarama and everyone in the room looked at me in shock. 7. I apologize if this comes out rude, but is there something wrong? I asked and then they broke from their stares. No, nothing is wrong child. If you would like, you may stay in the estate as long as you do not cause us harm. He warmly said, as if the defense he had around him disappeared. I smiled at him and answered. Sure, if you don't mind that is. Flashback end. And that's how I ended up in my position. Staying at the Senju estate, though I can easily tell that they're watching over me to make sure that I'm not actually a spy. I can't blame them. Who wouldn't? After all, what if they let a spy into their home and in the end, I betrayed them in the end? I sighed. During my time here, I visited the library and read all their books about history, clans and memorized the map of the world, so I can improve my int level. Though because of that I wasn't able to see the Senju brothers at all, but even so, they were always out on the battlefield fighting. There were a few moments when I would spar lightly, when no one was around, and it was outside the estate, with the Senju brothers and they've learned not to underestimate me. I stood from my seat, grabbing Benihime, and the maid in the room stood along with me. Is there a place where I can train at? I asked. Train? The maid questioned. A place to train with my sword. I explained. Then please follow me. The maid bowed and led me out of the room and through the estate. We walked for a few minutes and I memorized the layout of the buildings so that next time I wouldn't get lost the next time I went. We finally arrived at the training grounds and there were many men training there. I looked around seeing if there was any place where I could train with Benihime. What's a pretty girl like you doing here for? He asked, standing right in front of me. I'm just here to train. I hope there isn't a problem with that. I faked smiled at him. Train? Training isn't for someone so weak looking like you, little lady. I could hear the snickers from the men in the training ground as they watched the confrontment. Please, you need to treat her with respect. Lord Batsuma. The maid was interrupted as she suddenly braced for impact as the man in front of me raised his hand to hit her. Why should I respect a weak girl like right? He brought his hand down to her face and right before it made impact, I grabbed his wrist. What the? In all honesty, I don't care if you talk crap about me. I glared at him, releasing killing intent. But harming someone who's standing up for another is just pathetic. I began to crush his wrist, not enough to break it but enough to cause pain. Let go of me, he cried. Instead, let's fight. I let go of his fist, pulled in my key, and accepted his offer. 6. Very well. I walked into the center of the field and extracted Benihime. What rules are we going by with this fight? But Lady Ayumi, we'll be fighting like we would on the battlefield. The use of our weapons and ninjutsu is permitted. He smirked as he unsheathed his blade. The battle will end when one of us is unable to fight. Either one of us surrenders or we're put at death's door. Understood. Then I readied myself. Everyone in the field circled around us, getting ready to watch us fight, and the maid that was with me before ran off. I stood in the same place unmoving with Benihime's blade by my side. The man in front of me went in a weird pose with his sword, though I didn't show it. One of the people in the crowd walked out and raised his hand. Ready. I poured chakra into Benihime. Begin. I raised the arm with Benihime up and dropped her, her blade sinking into the soil. The man in front of me charged and Benihime casted her jutsu. A wood release, it caused roots to come out of the ground and render the man in front of me unable to move. I picked Benihime up from the soil and approached the man in front of me. How? This is our clan's Kekkei Genkei. So how? I stood right in front of him and released ki, making him drop his blade as he looked up at me with fear. 3. I'm sorry, but even I don't know the answer to your question. I lied, but I do know that this battle is over, please surrender. Never. I'd rather die than surrender to a woman like you, he proclaimed. I raised my sword high in the air, then prepared to face the consequences. He closed his eyes preparing for death, but I released my ki and switched my grip on Benihime's handle and hit the back of the man's head with Benihime's pommel, making him unconscious. I sheathed Benihime and checked if the man really was unconscious, and he was. I released the jutsu and watched his body drop to the ground. Then I asked, can someone take him to the medical room, he'll be knocked out for the rest of the day. 2 people came forth and picked him up, wrapping his arms around their shoulders and taking him away. Then the sound of rushed running came our way and Hashirama and Tobarama appeared. Wait, please don't fight, Hashirama cried, and I only sweat dropped at his words. He had a closer look at the scene and flushed red in embarrassment as the fight was already over. Brother, it seems like Ayumi has settled things without our assistance. Tobarama pointed out the oblivious. I only smiled at his words, walking up to them and bowing. Sorry for causing trouble, I apologized and stood up. Ah, no. From what we were told, you were challenged by one of our clansmen after you defended a maid from receiving an injury. So the ones at fault is us. Tobarama bowed to me and so did Hashirama. It's fine, in the end the only injury that occurred is a sore head for the poor man. I joked. They rose from their bows. Though, I think it's a sign that maybe I have overstayed my welcome. You're planning on leaving? Hashirama cried. You've only been here for a few days, though. Yes, I simply answered. Such a shame. I looked at the source of the voice and it was Bitsuma. I was hoping that perhaps you would stay and become my daughter-in-law. 7. Daughter-in-law? I tilted my head in confusion. I looked at Hashirama and Tobarama, hoping that they would have an answer, but all I saw was that their faces were flushed red, or at least Hashirama's was. Tobarama only gave a light blush. That only told me that they weren't informed about this idea at all. Yes, I was thinking of engaging you to one of my sons. Bitsuma thought deeply. 5. Father. Hashirama stuttered in horror. Tobarama only blushed a little deeper red. Though I was completely in panic mode, I didn't show it, only smiling softly at the thought. Then if you really desire for me not to leave so soon, I can stay for another few days. I offered, making his previous words as a joke. Bitsuma laughed at my words, but not in an offensive way. Even though I said it as a joke at first. I'm thinking of making it reality after watching your fight. My eyes widened at his words and my face warmed up. But I really do hope you stay for at least a few more days and hopefully discuss this subject more later. I nodded quickly and left, ran away, to the room I was staying in. Slamming the door behind me and dropping to the floor, I put my hands to my face, feeling the warmth of my face. 5. White tilde, I whined, casting a water jutsu tea spray on my face to calm me down. The next day, I sat in front of Bitsuma as the two of us having tea together. You made quite the impression on my clansmen yesterday, Bitsuma stated, as I hummed in acknowledgement. From what I've heard, you used wood release, correct? Yes, though if you plan on questioning me where I got it from, I have idea where I got it from. I smiled sadly as I took a small sip of my warm flavorful tea. That's what I heard yesterday too. Do you want to inform me if you have any other significant Kekkei Genkei? If you do, it won't affect our relationship with us. I shook my head in a negative response. He didn't say anything but just stared at me. From your eyes, or at least from my view, are you related to the Uchiha clan? I don't know. As I've said, I was never informed of my origin, so I can't confirm anything. I see. From what my spies have reported, you haven't done anything to make us weary of you. Do that marks you off as a spy? Do you have any intention in involving yourself in the war? He took a sip of tea, waiting for me answer. No. I moved another piece. Just the thought of involving myself in it makes me sick. I understand. From what I've heard, Hashirama has pacifist thoughts. What do you think about it? I questioned, having a longer than normal sip of tea. It's very weak of him. He huffed as he looked at me with sharp eyes. Is it weak to try and end a war that has taken the lives of those precious to him and trying to stop a fate of the deaths of those who are still alive? I questioned him as I stood up. I'm sorry, but even though I said I'd stay for a few days, it seems like I should go. I bowed to him and walked to the door. Before you leave, I want you to know that you're always welcomed here. But Tsuma said, I mean as long you remain a neutral. I'll make sure to inform my clansmen to treat you as a friend and equal. I'll try to come and visit again. Thank you for your hospitality. I closed the door behind me and walked to the back exit of the estate. Ayumi, where are you going? I turned around to see Hashirama running at me, panting. Tobirama right behind him. I'm leaving, I answered. But why? Is it because of what our father said? We're sorry if it is. Hashirama rambled on. Before Tobirama could tell him to shut up, I put my finger to his lips, effectively quieting him. I'm leaving on my own accord. I sighed and shrugged my shoulders. The reason why I left my seclusion in the first place was to travel the world. Tobirama took something out of his pocket and handed it to me. It was a small, thin green stone with the Senju clan mark that was attached to a golden thin rope. I slowly put my hand out and he dropped it in my hand. The next time you decide to visit, just show the ones that are guarding, and they'll let you in without question. Tobirama explained. I nodded, opening my cloak a bit to attach the ornament to my waist. Thanks. I gave them a hug. Even though we've only known each other for a few days, you'll be my first friends. I let them go and put my hood over my head. Make sure to survive, so that I can tell you of my adventures the next time we meet. Then I walked off into the forest. A week later. In the past week, I've been walking around the forest until now where I stumbled upon a fluffy orange tail. I touched it and it flinched. I touched it again and a growl came from the tail's owner. The tail moved away, and a snout of a fox filled my view. 6. You, who are you to find my home? The fox growled. My name is Ayumi and I guess I just stumbled upon your tail? I answered with the last part more like a question. What's your name? My name is Kurama. Why do you have the scent of the old man? The newly named Kurama asked. Old man? Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the sage of 6 paths. Kurama answered proudly. Oh, you mean him. I probably smell like him because I met him when I was younger. I hypothesized. You've met him? Yeah, after he accidentally killed me and reincarnated me into this world. I giggled. So you've been reincarnated, young one? He clarified and I nodded. I see. So what is your goal? My goal? Well, it's to travel the world and indulge in its riches, I suppose. I answered. Then Kurama raised his head and a fist came my way. Touch your fist with mine and I'll be able to make a bond with you. I made a fist with my hand and gently bumped mine with his. I felt a burst of power and a bond form between us. Name: Ayumi. Family name: blocked. Age: 5. Titles: reincarnated, child beloved by the sage of 6 paths, sharing on user, prodigy, craftsman, or woman, traveler, friend of the 9-tailed beast. Level: 0. 8. Clan: Senju, friend. Chakra control: max. Chakra sensing: max. Chakra: 736, 34, 757, 34. 3. Kurama's shared chakra: 900,000 900,000. 6. Attack: 89. Defense: 87. Agility: max. Int: 99. Luck: max. Jutsu categories: Ninjutsu, 86%. Taijutsu, 00%. Genjutsu, 64%. Jutsu subcategories: Fuinjutsu, 70%. Juinjutsu, 40%. Senjutsu, %. Medical ninjutsu, 64%. Kenjutsu, 53%. Barrier ninjutsu, 8%. Chakra natures: Fire, 97%. Water, 95%. Earth, 96%. Wind, 68%. Lighting, 79%. Advanced chakra natures: Wood, 60%. Kekkei Genkei. Sharing on, level 4. Curse: Immortality, cannot be broken. Bonds: Kurama, 9-tailed beast. Additional skills: Item box, max. Super growth, max. Hobbies: Embroidery, advance. Cooking, advance. Metalworking, intermediate. Plus. Why did you form a bond with me? I asked as I pulled my fist away. He put his own down. Just because the old man told me to trust and protect humans, doesn't mean it applies to all of them. And compared to others, you aren't so bad. Kurama smirked. Now get going. I want to get back to sleep. I see, thanks. It was nice to meet you, Kurama. I'll try and visit again if fate allows us. I waved at him and walked away. It was only a few hours later after I had met with Kurama and I had stumbled upon a bloodied battlefield. Bodies everywhere and blood painted the ground in its sickling beautiful crimson red. I looked closer at the body's armor and some of them had the Senju clan mark on them and the others had, what I think it is, the Uchiha clan mark on their armor. I could stare mournfully at them. I went into the field and dug graves for every one of them, using an earth jutsu to make the holes so that the process would speed up. Placing a body carefully into the holes, positioning them in a comfortable way for them to rest in peace. One by one, if a corpse were missing a limb, I would find said limb, reattach it and then bury the body. While I was doing this, I awakened Mangekyo Sharingan without realizing it, and when I did notice it was when I looked at my reflection in a pool of blood. I immediately deactivated it, so that others wouldn't see it. It was 3 hours I had spent burying the dead and, in all honesty, people would probably wonder why I would do this. I did it because the dead deserve a proper grave no matter what clan or person it is, making sure that I made a tombstone that each had a corresponding clan mark with the person. I knew they were enemies, so I made sure to separate them from each other. When I was done filling the holes, I put my hand on the ground and used a medical jutsu that I created, which would heal the lifeless battlefield with vibrant green grass and small colorful flowers. I went on my knees and gave my prayers to them. Then behind me, a man approached, walking without hiding his presence. Once I was done with my prayers, I stood up to face the man. He had black eyes and black hair with a blue tint to it. On his armor he wore the Uchiha clan symbol on it. Thankfully, I put the ornament that Tobarama had given to me in my item box, because I'm sure that the Uchiha would have attacked me on the spot. Is there a problem? I asked the man. Why did you bury them? He asked me. Because everyone deserves a proper burial. I smiled, a gentle breeze hit my face and my hood flew off. Were you looking for something here? Yes, I was looking for something I had left here. I asked what it looked like and he had described it as a midnight black stone with a thin white rope, ornament with the Uchiha clan mark on it. I put my hand in my cloak and pulled the item out, handing it to him. I found it when I was burying them. He laid out his hand and I dropped the ornament on it. I explained. He clenched it in his hand and gave it back. Yes? For burying my fallen clansmen. He smiled at me. My name is Izuna Uchiha, what's your name? My name is Ayumi. I attached the Uchiha ornament to my waist under my cloak. No clan name? Izuna questioned. You wouldn't guess the number of times I've heard that question, but no. I don't have a clan name. I giggled. You're quite powerful to cast a jutsu like that on a large area. Izuna mused. How about you come with me and rest a few days? I can tell you haven't properly rested for a few days. I'm surprised you aren't suspicious of me being with the Senju clan. I was at first, but... He activated his Sharingan. I can tell that you haven't made any movements or actions that have made me believe that you're untrustworthy. He deactivated his dojutsu and I could only sigh. So, let's head to my estate and we can talk some more. He gave me a close eye smile. You're not giving me any say in this, are you? I sharply bent down, and a storm cloud formed above me. Once it passed by, I stood upright and pouted. Free. Whoa, I cried as I was lifted and slung over his shoulder. What are you doing? Making sure you won't run away. Izuna stated bluntly, then he started to run from the burial grounds and into the dense forest. He then started to tree jump in the forest. The ride was quiet, not because it was awkward but because I was getting dizzy from being rocked up and down when he jumped, so I wasn't sane enough to speak proper sentences. My eyes started to spin, and I groaned in pain, hoping that he would notice, and he did, I think. He slowed down his pace and then jumped off the branch and started to walk. When he walked, my eyes stopped spinning and I was feeling much better. Lord Izuna, who's this woman you've brought with you? Someone asked. I could describe them cause all I saw was Izuna's back. This is someone who I am indebted to. My eyes widened at Izuna's words. I assure you that she's no threat to the clan, she might become a great asset, actually. I can only assume they let him in as he started to walk again. I looked up to the guards and gave them a smile and a wave. Izuna continued to walk with me over his shoulder and as he strolled through the estate, I could feel many stares directed at me. He continued his march until he finally stopped as what I could presume was a door because he asked for entry. A voice from inside the room permitted his entry and the sound of a sliding door played, then he continued his march. "Izuna, who is this girl?" A rough voice asked, and how he didn't address him as Lord, I could only get he was ranking higher than him or he's his father. "And why did you leave the estate without notifying anyone?" My apologizes father, I went out by myself to retrieve an item I had dropped in today's earlier battle and I did find said item, but I also met this woman. She buried every single casualty in the dispute by herself and the most interesting thing was that she used a jutsu that restored the devastated land, making the bloodied field into vibrant green grass and flowers of many colors. Izuna explained, and I sighed. I see. What is that girl's name Izuna? A different, but still rough, voice asked. Her name is Ayumi, brother. Izuna answered and I could only cough. If you wouldn't mind Izuna, but could you put me down? I've been stuck in this position for quite some time and I'm afraid that if I'm stuck like this anymore, I'll pass out from too much blood in the head. I pleaded and explained. He complied and put me upright, so my feet touched the ground. I turned to face the men in the room and bowed. As Izuna has stated, my name is Ayumi. I belong to no clan, so I do not have a clan name. I raised my head from my bow and gave a small smile. Is what my brother said true? Izuna's brother, I believe, asked. Yes, I spent a few hours before I met Izuna, burying those in the field and restoring the land. I confirmed, then they started to discuss to themselves. Then they were about to ask me questions but Izuna stepped in. Father, seeing as she is exhausted now, how about we let her rest for a bit? Then she can satisfy our curiosities. His father agreed and told him to bring me to a guest room. He did and grabbed my hand to bring me there. When we arrived, Izuna instructed to bring tea and a few snacks to the room. I could only strain a smile as he, forced, had me take a seat. We sat in silence as the servants brought tea and snacks. I slowly sipped the teacup in front of me, savoring the flavoring. Then the door slammed open and Izuna's brother who had long porcupine hair and black hair barged him and sat at the table we were sitting at, grunting in the process. Ayumi, this is my older brother Madara Uchiha. Brother, this is Ayumi. Izuna introduced. I put my cup down and waved at Madara. All said man did was grunt as he snatched a treat off the table. So what was the real reason you brought me here, Izuna? I asked casually as I took a sip of the tea. Do you have questions that you want to answer? Anything you want me to do? What's your occupation? He asked. Just a traveler. I said, I wasn't lying, it was one of my titles. I simply know a few jutsus. Is that so? Madara just stared at me, like he was expecting more. Izuna, what item did you lose that you absolutely had to retrieve yourself? Madara mused. Nothing much. I sipped some tea. Just the charm that mom gave me when we were young. I spit the tea out and Madara slammed his head on the table, said table shook at his action. You lost what? Why did you give me such an important item? Me and Madara yelled, Izuna just ignore us. You gave her the charm? What is going on with your head brother? Madara grumbled, you shouldn't have given it back to me if it was important. I panicked, I reached into my cloak to give the ornament back, but Izuna raised his hand to stop me. I gave it to you as thanks for giving my clansmen a proper burial when we couldn't without being ambushed by the Senju. Izuna smiled and I could only sigh as I stopped my attempt to give back his charm. When you come and visit, just show the charm and they'll let you in without question. I nodded. Actually, if you don't mind me asking, I remember feeling a sword on your waist when I was carrying you. Do you know how to fight? I have to, if I didn't and was ambushed by bandits, you can say goodbye to my safety. I giggled. Madara looked at me curiously and asked, is there a specific field you specialize in? Taijutsu. I immediately answered, remembering the last time I checked and the memories of my self-torturous training I put on myself. It probably changed again since I last looked at it. Taijutsu, huh? How about we have a spar then? Izuna suggested and Madara smirked. Sure. Madara's smirk dropped. I don't mind. Really? You're that confident in your skills? Madara questioned. Izuna here is the third most powerful member of our clan and you're accepting his challenge? I'm not necessarily confident, more like wanting to have fun. I've never actually fought someone but there was one time when, well let's say he was knocked out in the first few seconds of our battle. I laughed. Then how about we have a spar now? Izuna stood up and me and his brother looked at him. I'm sure you've rested enough. I nodded at his words and stood up and took off my cloak and revealed my outfit underneath. Outfit from before, it hasn't changed. The charm and Benihime rested on my waistband. Taijutsu, or are we using the sword as well? I asked. Just taijutsu, Izuna answered, looking at Benihime. I took her off and handed her to Izuna to have a look at her. He took her and unsheathed her, looking at all her parts from the tip of the blade to the bottom of her handle. Who made your sword? It's well crafted. Madara also stood up to look at Benihime. I did. They looked at me in shock. I lived in complete isolation and didn't live near any villages, so I had to craft her myself. I explained, you have quite the skill. Perhaps the two of us can have a battle between our blades. Madara suggested as Izuna sheathed Benihime and handed her back to me. I took her back and just held her to my side, knowing that I would have to take her off for our taijutsu battle. Shall we get going? I'm really excited for our match. My eyes sparkled as I said that. I'll finally be able to get experience with my skills, or at least taijutsu. Of course, if you would follow me. Izuna lead me out the door and to the training grounds I can presume will be the place where we'll spar at. Madara followed behind us, shamelessly observing me and my movements. Once we arrived, Izuna cleared the grounds and I placed Benihime with Madara and asked him to watch over her. He simply grunted and I took that as a yes. I walked in front of Izuna as he stood in the training field, waiting for me. Right before we started, I said, Izuna, if you want you can use your Sharingan. Everyone just stared at me like I was crazy and Izuna raised his brow in question. If and when you do, I'll activate my wildcard to even the field. He nodded at me and put himself in a stance. I did too, closing my eyes and preparing to hear the start. Begin. I kept my eyes closed and waited for Izuna to make the first move, and when he did, I opened my eyes and used half the stats of my agility and ran behind him in a flash. Preparing a roundhouse kick to side, but he caught on quickly and barely made it in time, blocking. Then I back handspring away, and once I got my footing I charged again, not letting him prepare a defense as I punched him in the stomach, sending him flying. Wait. I looked at Izuna and I saw him coughing up blood. Eek. I ran up to him and started to heal him. A soft green glow came from my hand as I placed it where I had punched him. I'm sorry. Did I break any rules? Did I use too much strength? I'm sorry. I kept rambling and I ignored the stares I was receiving, and I completely missed as Madara approached us. When I did notice I looked at him, realizing tears were coming down from me face. When I cried out, I didn't mean to, I'm sorry. I bowed down with my head on the ground. But in response I heard laughter. I looked up and saw Madara turning away and laughing, and when I looked at Izuna, he was laughing as well. I looked around and they were looking at us in shock. When Izuna and Madara noticed that their clansmen were staring at them, they coughed and stopped laughing. Madara kneeled in front of me and put a hand on my cheek, wiping my tears on my face. Once my tears were gone, he handed Benihime back to me. 3. It seems like I underestimated you when Izuna challenged you to a spar. I wasn't expecting you to be able to defeat my brother so quickly. Madara exhaled. Though it was my fault, I wasn't fighting her seriously and this is what I get. Izuna chuckled quietly. Still, I should have controlled my strength despite everything. I sighed. Nah, don't worry about it. Izuna stood up and helped me up from the ground. Now you have to tell me how you became so fast. Training, I said. Izuna just froze on the spot and sweat dropped at me. Just training? 5. Yup. If you'd excuse me, I'm going to go take a nap. I ran off to the room I was staying in without looking behind me. A few days later. Over the past few days I trained with the Uchiha clan members, and when they were away on the battlefield, I went to their library to see if I could learn more information, especially about the Sharingan. But when they come back, I go where they battled and buried all the bodies from both sides as usually. I was able to train my earth jutsu and completely perfected the element. Which is awesome. I just need to perfect the water element and wood release should come a lot easier. Though I need to work on the wind element. Plus, I made sure not to reveal my true abilities when we were training together. Speaking of my stats. Name. Ayumi. Family name. Blocked. 4. Age. 5. Titles. Reincarnated, child beloved by the sage of 6 paths, Sharingan user, prodigy, craftsman, or woman, traveler, friend of the nine-tailed beast. Level. 09. Clan. Senju, friend, Uchiha, friend. Chakra control. Max. Chakra sensing. Max. Chakra. 64, 98, 64, 98. Kurama's shared chakra. 900,000 900,000s. Attack. Max. Defense. 95. Agility. Max. Int. Max. Luck. Max. 4. Jutsu categories. Ninjutsu, 9%, Taijutsu, 00%, Genjutsu, 76%. Jutsu subcategories. Fuinjutsu, 7%, Juinjutsu, 4%, Senjutsu, 5%, Medical Ninjutsu, 00%, Kenjutsu, 6%, Barrier Ninjutsu, 00%. Chakra natures. Fire, 99%, Water, 97%, Earth, 00%, Wind, 70%, Lighting, 85%. Advanced chakra natures. Wood, 65%. Kekkei Genkei. Sharingan, Mangekyo, imperfect. Curse. Immortality, cannot be broken. Bonds. Kurama, nine-tailed beast. Additional skills. Item box, max, super growth, max. Hobbies. Embroidery, advance, cooking, advance, metalworking, intermediate. 3. My only sweat dropped at the sight of it in front of me. But now having a proper look at it, maybe I should cool down with the training, and that made me think I should go back to traveling. I've stayed here too long and I'm getting restless. I dismissed the status board and stood up. I put my cloak on and walked out the door to where the head and elders of the Uchiha clan was located at. I knocked on the door, and when I heard an enter, I slid open the door and walked in. I sat in front of them and bowed my head a bit. "Hello Ayumi, is there something you needed from us?" Tajima, Izuna and Madara's father, asked. "No, I wanted to thank you for your hospitality and welcoming me to your home, but," I raised my head to look him in the eye. "I've stayed here too long. I believe it's time for me to leave." "Leave?" "Yes. Before I came here, I was a traveler and I want to continue my profession." I smiled. "I want to continue my endless journey to travel the world and meet many people, clans and creatures. I don't mean to be offensive, but I've become way too comfortable staying here." They were quiet for a few moments before their heads started to laugh wholeheartedly. "Don't worry, your words don't offend us at all, but instead comments us instead. We're known as a cruel clan, so to hear that we made someone like you comfortable in a few days." Tajima laughed. "As you know, I'm a traveler, so I'll meet many people, and what if I become friends with the Senju clan?" I asked. "As long as you don't slide with them and remain in a neutral position with the both of us. I don't see a problem with that." One of the elders smiled. "Well, I swear on my name of Ayumi, that I will remain a neutral with the conflict between the Uchiha and Senju clans." I bowed and slowly raised my head. "We should give you something to represent our relationship." "It's okay." I pulled out Izuna's charm he had given to me when we first met. "Izuna gave this to me, so we can use this." Very interesting." I heard them mutter to themselves. "Is something wrong?" I asked as I put the charm away. "Well, we know that charm is incredibly important to Izuna, and it's surprising to see someone else holding it in their hands." Then they smirked. "Probably means that he has a thing for you." My face warmed up a bit. "Please tell me you're joking." I pleaded. "Of course we are." They said something else at the end, but I ignored it and calmed myself down, my face cooling down. Then I stood up. "Where are you going?" "I'd be best if I said my goodbyes, I'm leaving today." I bowed. "Thank you for everything." I raised my head and left the room. I then went around the estate saying my goodbyes and thanks, but in all that time I didn't see Izuna or Madara. I sighed in exaggeration because you'd think that they were avoiding me, because whenever I would ask where they were, the answer would be there in the estate. I gave up. Walking to the front entrance of the estate, I waved goodbye to the guards there and walked into the forest. A few minutes of walking, I saw two figures leaning against trees. As I approached the figures, they became much clearer as who they were, and they were, of course, the Uchiha brothers. When I reached to where they were, I stopped my walk. "So this is where you guys were." I sighed. Madara came up to me and handed me a large bag, grunting in the process. I raised a brow and held the bag, opening it to see gold coins. I looked at him and Izuna to figure out why. "Well, you'll be traveling around, and from what you've told us, you don't have any kind of funds to support you when you go to places where it requires you to have assets." Izuna smiled. I tried giving it back to them, but they dodged my attempts. Even though I could have easily used my skills to forcefully give it back, but they would hunt me down to give it back to me. I stopped my endeavors and sighed in defeat. Thanks. I put it under my cloak and secretly put it in item box. In honesty, I don't know when I'll come back, but promise me that you'll stay alive so that when I do, I can tell you of my adventures around the world. Madara clicked his tongue and Izuna elbowed him. Of course. Izuna once again smiled at me. I gave them a hug, and while I did, they both flinched at my touch. I let them go and continued my adventure, waving to them as I walked away from them. Name: Ayumi. Family name: blocked. Age: 5. Titles: Reincarnated, Child beloved by the Sage of Six Paths, Sharingan User, Prodigy, Craftsman, or Woman, Traveler, Friend of all tailed beasts, Friend of many clans, Shinobi Goddess. 0. Level: 8. Clan: Friend, Aburame, Akamichi, Fuma, Hoshigaki, Hyuga, Inazuka, Kurama, Sarutobi, Senju, Shimura, Uchiha, Uzumaki, Yamanaka, etc. 4. Chakra Control: Max. Chakra Sensing: Max. Chakra: 6736, 34 6757, 34. 5. Tailed Beast Shared Chakra: 4,500,000 4,500,000. Attack: Max. Defense: Max. Agility: Max, +5. Int: Max, +5. Luck: Max. Jutsu Categories: Ninjutsu, 00%, Taijutsu, 00%, Genjutsu, 00%. Jutsu Subcategories: Fuinjutsu, 00%, Juinjutsu, 00%, Senjutsu, 6%, Medical Ninjutsu, 00%, Kenjutsu, 00%, Barrier Ninjutsu, 00%, Bukajutsu, 00%, Chakra Flow, 00%, Clone Techniques, 00%, Reincarnation Ninjutsu, 00%, Shurikenjutsu, 00%. Chakra Natures: Fire, 00%, Water, 00%, Earth, 00%, Wind, 00%, Lighting, 00%, Yin, 00%, Yang, 00%, Yin-Yang Release, 00%. Advanced Chakra Natures: Boil, 00%, Lava, 00%, Magma, 00%, Magnet, 00%, Mud, 00%, Phasing, 00%, Flight, 00%, Gravity, 00%, Ice, 00%, Dark, 00%, Storm, 00%, Swift, 00%, Typhoon, 00%, Wood, 00%. 6. Kekkei Genkei: Sharingan, Rinne. 5. Curse: Immortality, cannot be broken. Bonds: Kurama, 9-tailed beast. Gyuki, 8-tailed beast. Chome, 7-tailed beast. Seiken, 6-tailed beast. Kakuo, 5-tailed beast. Son Goku, 4-tailed beast. Isobu, 3-tailed beast. Matababi, 2-tailed beast. And Shukaku, 1-tailed beast. 5. Additional skills: Item Box, Max. Super Growth, Max. World Map, Max. Hobbies: Embroidery, Advance. Cooking, Advance. Metalworking, Advance. Shogi, Advance. 3. I sighed at the sight of my status plate in front of me. Over the past decade, I traveled the entire world, and because of that I got the additional skill world map. When I met clans from all the lands, I received a tag, ornament, or document from each of them with a different clan mark, making sure to put them in item box so I could keep them safe and so I wouldn't make enemies if a clan saw their enemy's clan mark on me. How I met them is by meeting them in the forest, bumping into their estates or saving their clansmen. Though I didn't become friends with all of them, some truly don't take kindly to those outside of their blood. When I did meet them and spent a few days with them, they taught me new chakra natures and new sub-jutsus, improved my stats, and over time, my Sharingan became of the Rinne Sharingan. I occasionally went to the Land of Fire and buried more casualties from the Senju and Uchiha battles, though it acts like a normal Sharingan and only appears when I activate it. 4. Over the years I also met and bonded with all the tailed beasts, learning their names and all. I put my status plate away and looked at the distance from my view on the moving cart. Thanks, mister. I think I'll be going now. I thanked as I jumped off the cart. When I landed on the ground, I looked to the side and a forest awaited there and I walked into it. I was warned by the driver that it belonged to the Nara clan and to be careful of it. I took his warning to heart and made a sensory barrier around me to make sure no hostile beings will attack me without warning. Speaking of hostile beings, I sensed one in the forest, but that hostility wasn't aimed at me, but at something else. I ran into the forest towards the location of that being. When I ran closer and closer, I heard laughter, but not the good kind. Ha, that was too easy. I know, right? If we sell the antlers, we'll make a bunch of money from it. I looked at the creature and saw it was still alive but barely. I unsheathed Benihime and used full stats to behead them, blood spilling everywhere. There were only a few people there and I could presume they were bandits and rogues because of the way they were dressed. Walking to the injured deer, I sheathed Benihime and put my hand over its wound, healing it with a soft green mystic glow. Only it was healed, I used a water style rain after the drought to lightly sprinkle the area, cleaning everything around us of the blood from those criminals. Demon arts. Hell flame. I applied the jutsu on the bodies and they burned, only those, it didn't burn the area surrounding them at all. When they became ashes, the moist grass made it become one with the earth. Then I used wind style, warm breeze. It casted a warm breeze around us and dried me and the deer from the water jutsu I used earlier. 5. When I was done, I looked back at the deer and smiled, patting its head, scratching behind its ear. After I was done, I walked away from it, but it started to follow behind me as I walked. As I continued to walk in the forest, more and more deer started to join me in my walk. Not attacking me, more like just following me curiously. 3. After a few minutes later, I finally stopped and looked behind me to look at the deer. There were quite a few of them and I sighed at the sight of it. I sat down on the grass to take a break and the deer surrounded me. One went behind, allowing me to rest my back on him. Letting my legs lay out, the deer rested their heads on them, falling asleep on me. I made sure my hood was secured over my face and I fell asleep myself. I'm not sure how long it was but I felt a tongue licking my face and I woke up, the bright light blinding me a bit in the beginning. But once my eye adjusted to the light, I saw a few figures standing in front of me. I raised myself from my position on the deer behind me and the deer heads on my legs shifted a bit to look at the people in front of me. Hello. I waved at them. I'm sorry, am I not allowed here? Ah. This is the Nara clan forest. Normally only those of the Nara clan are permitted to enter this forest without the deer residing here, attacking you. But it seems like you did something or for some reason, the deer aren't attacking you. One of the Nara clansmen explained. Oh, I did hear that this was the Nara clan forest and to be weary of it, but I receive any more information besides that. I chuckled. I would stand up to greet you properly, but I gestured to the deer around me. Don't worry about it, though we would like to bring you to the Nara estate to meet the head of our clan. I nodded accepting, and with that the deer heads that were once on my legs were removed and I was finally able to stand up, though it was shakily. I almost fell over because of the lack of blood in my legs. The deer that I was leaning on, the one that I had saved, who I can presume is the leader from his size, stood by my side, allowing me to use him as a support. Then we started to walk, following the Nara clansmen to their estates. Once we arrived, I wasn't relying on the leader deer to walk anymore, the deer left as I walked into the estate. When we walked within the estate, I noticed many stares on me again. But unlike when I visited other clans, it wasn't shameless and it wasn't like they were looking at me with distaste for being an outsider, but they looked at me, studying me. Then as we were walking, we suddenly stopped as a man in front of us asked us to. He looked at me, studying me, and I took off my hood. Greetings, my name is Ayumi. I was found by your men in your forest. I explained. Hello, Miss Ayumi, I'm the head of the Nara clan. He smiled at me. Would you like to play a game of shogi with me? I nodded and he led me to a room, the people from before not following us. We went to a room and the head of the Nara motioned me to have a seat as he sets up the game. I did and I sat as he placed the board between us and clicked the pieces in their places. I looked at the board once all the pieces were on. On my side, in the rank closest to me, the king is in the center back line and adjacent to the king is 2 golden generals and adjacent to the golden generals is 2 silver generals. Next to the silver generals is 2 knights and 2 lances are at the corners of my side of the board. In the second ranks is the bishop in the same file as the left knight and the rook in the same file as the right knight. Finally in the third rank, 9 pawns lined side by side. Ladies first. I didn't look at him, but I smirked at his words and moved my first piece, beginning our game. The Nara head in front of me spent no time talking, nor did he, from what I could tell, want to make idle conversation between us. In each of my moves, I purposely made them irrational and illogical looking, but in the end, those moves kept blocking many of the Nara head's next step. From making seemingly useless sacrifices and moves, down the road it caused the Nara head in front of me to sacrifice more of his important pieces. This game went on for 5 hours, both of us studying the other, countering each other and our moves, unable to outmatch the other. You're quite good. The Nara head broke the silence between us. Is that so? I haven't played for a while so I'm not sure. I answered, still looking at the board. Perhaps if I moved this piece. So what was a young woman like you doing in a forest? I was exploring, living a free life of a traveler. Well, most women at your age would have gotten a husband and had a child, so it was surprising. Well, I'm not like most women. I looked at him. I don't depend on other people to help me with things I am fully capable of doing myself. Then I looked back at the board, moving a pawn. To be honest, the most surprising thing was that you weren't attacked by the deer in the forest. Why is that so? I just healed one of them. I took one of his pieces when I moved my own. So how did one of my clan's deer come to be injured? I'm not completely sure. All I saw were bandits using kunai and attempting to take its antlers. Then the room felt a little heavy and I looked at the head and saw that he looked calm, but his eyes were full of fury. I killed the ones who did it so you don't have to worry about it. The room returned to normal and I sighed. A knock came from the door and the Nara head called for him in. He did and he looked like the head and I could safely presume that he was the head's son. It's your win. If it's okay, could I borrow a room to rest in? He nodded and called someone in to take me to the guest room. When they arrived, they led me away and I let the head and his son talk. As we were walking to the guest room and I heard a loud confounded. What? Oops. Looks like I was found out. In the last few moves of our game, I just used them to distract the Nara head's attention from noticing the position of my innocent rook on the board, since if I had moved it a square, I would have checkmated him and won the game. Now I'm sure he'll be demanding a rematch. I clicked my tongue and sighed. Plus, what a pain tilde. A week later, checkmate, I proclaimed for what it seemed like the 100th time. Ever since I let the Nara head have that win, he's been asking for rematches since. I mean I wanted to refuse but he said he'll let me read their book of medicine and pills. I've been bribed but I don't care. My int stats have grown since I've been reading it so it's cool. I think. Anyways, for the past week, like I have stated before, I played many games of shogi with all the clan members and have never lost, not because I'm competitive, but it's because I just didn't want to lose. Also during the week, I've been reading and studying the book of medicine and pills the Nara head let me read cough. Cough bribed me with cough. Cough and I've also helped with the younger members of the clan. They are such a pain sometimes. 3. Lazy little butts. Though, they are incredibly smart for their age, sometimes. But anyways whenever I hang out with the children, I would play a game of shogi with them. In frankness all I really did with the Naras was play shogi with them. But despite that, it made me close with them as we would review the game and confess what we could have changed and what not. Also, recently the Nara head gave me the king, a shogi piece of his personal set. It was made of a pure white stone. The wording was written with gold with the word king on top and the Nara clan mark on the bottom of the piece. I put it in item box when I was alone, so I wouldn't risk losing it, just like I did for the other tags, ornaments, and documents clans from all over the world had given to me. Speaking of documents, that's to the Nara clan. I was able to get my hands on a lot's empty journals so I could record my adventures. I filled out about 5 journals, 2 years worth of adventures per book. I didn't want to forget anything so, I'm not that I mentioned this, but I memorized everything from when I was reincarnated to present time so that I could write in a journal if I got the chance to. 3. I was thinking that I would leave today, to visit some old clans like the Senju and Uchiha. Ayumi. I looked up next to me and the Nara heir, the head's son from a week ago, stood there. My father asked for me to bring you with me. We have some guests, and he wants your input. I nodded and stood up, saying my apologizes to the Nara I was playing against and walked out, following the heir to where his father was at. As we approached the room, I heard soft conversing from it and the Nara heir knocked on the door and we heard to come in. He slid the door open and apologized for being late. I walked in the room and went straight to the Nara head and sat next to him. His heir sat on the other side than him. I looked at the guests and widened my eyes. It was Tobarama and Madara, though they obviously looked older and they looked at me, in shock as well. Ayumi, it seems like you know them. Care to indulge us with your knowledge? The Nara head asked. I broke from my shock and coughed. The one of the right with the white hair and blue armor is Tobarama Senju and the one on the left with the long black hair and high-collared black kimono is Madara Uchiha. I introduced. As you know, my occupation is a traveler, so I've been able to learn many jutsus and met many clans and people. Our guests are people I met in the beginning of my journey. Are they someone who you would trust your life with? He whispered to me. Yes. I nodded, cracking a small smile. I see. Well, what is it you have come here for Tobarama Senju and Madara Uchiha? The Nara head asked. We've come as representatives of the Senju and Uchiha alliance, asking if your clan would like to join our village we're creating. Tobarama explained. Very interesting. Please allow us a few days to decide. Understood, we look towards the answer you will give us. Tobarama said. In the meanwhile, he looked at me. I'm sure you and our guests would like to catch up. The Nara head smiled. Plus, yes, I nodded. That would be lovely. Then Tobarama and Madara, if you would please follow Ayumi and you can have a chat with her. I stood up, Tobarama and Madara followed my lead, and slid the door open, walking out. I waited for them to come out and close the door before I continued walking. We walked in silence and I led them to my room. When we arrived, I opened the door and went to sit at the table I had. The door closed as they sat at the table with me. It's good to hear that the war is over? I commented. Who died after I left? I looked at them sincerely, wanting the truth. Izuna and my father. Madara spoke and I looked at him, looking in his eyes and seeing great sadness. I looked at Tobarama, my father. Tobarama sighed. I see. Well, I made a promise to tell you of my adventures when I saw you next. I smiled. Shall we get started? It's a long story. Then I started from when I left the Uchiha clan, telling them of the places I visited and their beauty. Describing how dry the desert was to how cold the mountains were. I intentionally avoided talking about the tailed beasts because I had a feeling that I shouldn't talk about them openly. I continued to talk about the type of clans I met and the type of Kekkei Genkai I learned about. Without realizing it, hours passed, and I didn't notice the kind of faces Tobarama and Madara were making at me, only remembering the memories of my explorations of the world. When I finished my story, I looked at the window and the sun where it was once burning bright, telling all those who resides below it that its day was now setting behind the hills, welcoming the night. Oh, well, I think I should show you your rooms. I stood up and tripped a bit in the process. Tobarama stood up and helped me. Sorry, my legs fell asleep. It's fine, we can have someone else show us our rooms. Madara grunted. Are you sure? I asked. I sighed at the Uchiha's response and sat back down. Okay, you win. Putting my arms in a crisscross on the table and placing my head on it. I felt Tobarama rub my head and walked to the door calling for someone to bring him and Madara to their rooms. When they both were gone, I raised my head from the table and pulled out a scroll, ink, and brush, starting to write. Telling the Nara clan thanks for allowing me to stay in their home, but I needed to return to my adventures, due to staying in one place for too long. I let the scroll dry before rolling it up and tying it. I concealed my chakra and opened the door before jumping out and back into the forest where I continued my journey. 5 months later, I walked in the forest, listening to the gentle breeze moving the leaves as they are stationed to the branches of many trees and watching the clouds dance in the sky. In the past months, instead of exploring the present world that I have already seen, I learned space-time ninjutsu 00% in the first month, and once I did, I traveled to the past, making sure not to affect the timeline too much with my visit. I learned about Hagoromo's past, though I made sure to avoid him. But when I went to the past, I also met a frog by the name of Gamamaru. How I met him was by him coming to me when I was resting by a river. He surprised me good when he suddenly jumped out of the water and started to talk to me. Gamamaru told me that I was part of a dream he had that night, and he told me that he'll teach me senjutsu. So for the last 4 months, I've been receiving the teaching from the Sage Toad, and I've learned the basics of how to do it, so that I can train even more when I have spare time. Also, Gamamaru helped me raise the stats for Senjutsu to 54%. But now, I think I should settle down for a few years or for some time at least. So that's why I'm heading for Konohagakure, the village hidden in the leaves. Madara must have came up with that name. When I went to the village gates, I could immediately tell that they were just starting to build their village. Nothing looked like it was official, but it was a start. Walking up to the gate, there was 2 guards positioned there and they looked familiar. Ayumi, it's a pleasure to see you again. It was someone from the Sarutobi clan. Hello again, I hope I'm allowed into the village. I giggled. You're allowed. Someone from the Senju clan smiled at me. After all, from the last time I checked, Lord Hashirama and Lord Madara informed us that if a traveler of the name of Ayumi comes by, she's allowed to come into the village without question. Okay, I walked into the village and waved at them. Thanks for letting me in. I walked in the village, looking around to see the streets full of cheerful, playful children running around and small stands selling food. It appeared to be full of life, but when I looked at the Senju and Uchiha clansmen, it felt tense and kind of strained. I kept walking and waving to people who greeted me, but I kept walking. Then I bumped into someone. Ayumi? A familiar feminine voice asked. I saw bright fiery red hair and immediately recognized it. Mito? Her face instantly lit up like fireworks and she grabbed my hand, dragging me away. Where are you bringing me? Just the right person we needed. She dragged me through town and into a building. There I heard arguing. Can you explain? She slammed open the door and everyone inside looked at me. What's going on? I sweated profusely at the sight of all the clan leaders that I knew from all over the land of fire. I coughed, straightening myself and waved. Long time no see, but I really must get going so. I tried walking out the door, but it was slammed shut and Mito had an iron grip on my wrist, not letting me go. I started to sweat, knowing that she wasn't going to let me escape. We need you to settle something, Mito said. Hashirama will explain. I looked at said man and smiled, threatening of course, and his reaction was that he became pale quick. Well, we were discussing the alliance between all of us and we wanted your input when we could get it. He handed me a slip of paper. This is the contract we signed together. I skimmed through the contract, only highlighting what I seemed as important. Why would you ask me though? I asked, not looking up from the contract in my hand. Because you're a neutral party between every single clan in this village. I heard Madara answer and I pulled my head back and thought. Well, first off I want to inform you that this village, no, this alliance has reached the ears of those around the world, sparking even more villages to form, combining clans to make them. I faced them. From my understanding, this was a long-time dream of the Senju clan head, for there to be peace in the land of fire. But, you must be prepared. I released ki and everyone was on guard. I may be a friend to you and your clans, but do not turn for me to help you in the time of war. I stopped releasing my ki and smiled. After all, I'm just a simple travel that travels the world, learning new things and meeting people from my journey. Everyone just anime fell to the floor after I spoke my words. I see, so you think that a war may come for us in the future? One of the clan heads asked. No, I don't think, I know it will happen. I sighed. Peace is something that can't happen unless you sacrifice something in return. Just like how I was given many abilities, but now I must use them sparingly, so I don't become some tyrant. I clenched my fist and stopped myself from clenching my teeth as well. I see. Well, on to the topic of our contract, what do you think? Hashirama queried. It's good, from my standpoint, though you need to be more specific on a few things, and when I was walking in the village, you need to fix the hostility between the Senju and the Uchiha. If you don't, I'm afraid that in the future, it will get to the point where the future leader of this village. I trailed off, thinking of the right wording and words to say. We'll order the massacre of one of the clans to end that conflict. Then the room became heavy. Though, this is only a hypothesis from my observations, but in the end I'm a neutral party. So you can ignore my heeding and do as you wish, or you can listen to my words and perhaps change a future that may happen. Mito's grip on my wrist was released and I walked out the door, leaving the heavy room. 1 week later. After that meeting a week ago, I met up with Mito again and I apologized to her for my actions back at the meeting. She told me it was fine and that it was necessary to make sure that my words got into their heads. Though she did tell me they'd talked about me being someone who you don't want to anger or mess with. Oops. Anyways, thanks to her I was able to stay at their estate they made in the village and I learned that most of the clan still resided in their village. During my stay at their estate, I was able to practice and experiment with seals with the input of Fuinjutsu masters. It truly was a blessing. Thanks to their guidance, when I first met them, I was able to improve a whole lot in their field of expertise. I opened my status plate in front of me. Name: Ayumi. Family name: blocked. Age: 5. Titles: Reincarnated, Child beloved by the Sage of Six Paths, Sharing on User, Prodigy, Craftsman, or Woman, Traveler, Friend of all tailed beasts, Friend of many clans, Shinobi Goddess, Sage. Level: 93. Clan: Friend. Aburame, Akamichi, Fuma, Hoshigaki, Hyuga, Inazuka, Kurama, Nara, Sarutobi, Senju, Shimura, Uchiha, Uzumaki, Yamanaka, etc. Chakra control: Max. Chakra sensing: Max. Chakra: 6797, 34 6797, 34. Nature chakra: N.A. 4. Tailed beast shared chakra: 4,500,000 4,500,000. Attack: Max, plus O. Defense: Max, plus. Agility: Max, plus 3-4. Int: Max, plus 4-5. Luck: Max. Jutsu categories: Ninjutsu, 00%, Taijutsu, 00%, Genjutsu, 00%. Jutsu subcategories: Fuinjutsu, 00%, Juinjutsu, 00%, Senjutsu, 94%, Medical Ninjutsu, 00%, Kenjutsu, 00%, Barrier Ninjutsu, 00%, Bukajutsu, 00%, Chakra Flow, 00%, Clone Techniques, 00%, Reincarnation Ninjutsu, 00%, Shurikenjutsu, 00%. Chakra natures: Fire, 00%, Water, 00%, Earth, 00%, Wind, 00%, Lighting, 00%, Yin, 00%, Yang, 00%, Yin-Yang Release, 00%. Advanced chakra natures: Boil, 00%, Lava, 00%, Magma, 00%, Magnet, 00%, Mud, 00%, Phasing, 00%, Flight, 00%, Gravity, 00%, Ice, 00%, Dark, 00%, Storm, 00%, Swift, 00%, Typhoon, 00%, Wood, 00%. Kekkei Genkei: Sharing on, Rinne. Curse: Immortality, cannot be broken. Bonds: Kurama, 9-tailed beast. Gyuki, 8-tailed beast. Chome, 7-tailed beast. Seiken, 6-tailed beast. Kakuo, 5-tailed beast. Son Goku, 4-tailed beast. Isobu, 3-tailed beast. Matababi, 2-tailed beast. And Shukaku, 1-tailed beast. Additional skills: Item box, Max. Super growth, Max. World map, Max. Hobbies: Embroidery, Advance. Cooking, Advance. Metalworking, Advance. Shogi, Advance. Once again, I only sighed at the sight of it. Once again, I must call myself a monster. I put my status plate away and stood from my spot, walking out of the estate and to the Hokage Tower. A few days ago, I was informed that Hashirama was elected as Hokage, the village leader. Of course not, Hashirama laughed. Now about the document about your relationship, givens and our promises to you, and don't worry, all of the clans agreed to this, so there won't be any complications. He pulled out a slip of paper and handed it to me. I grabbed it and started to read the contents of it. The basic gist of it was that I was an ally to Konoha, but they couldn't make me provide them information or resources for war between clans, villages, or even countries. It also stated that they wouldn't use my name or I for political or military gain, unless I, myself, allowed them to use it, also stating that no one in the village could force me to do anything I didn't wish to do. To add on, the document stated that they would give me a yearly allowance and a residence to reside at. Adding on, it stated that I'm allowed to have information that the Hokage permits me to have, and I can ask for information if I believe it to be important to me to have. In addition, it spoke that if any of these things would be broken or done, then I had every right to decide the punishment for the village. Though we made sure to word it in a way where it doesn't seem like I'm some sort of evil overlord. We discussed a bit about it, changing the wording so there wouldn't be any loopholes anyone could or would expose. Then we talked about my relationships with other villages and clans, especially in times of war and peace. So we made sure to emphasize that I wouldn't be involved in wars between clans or villages or countries, forcibly. After we did that, Tobirama joined us in the document making, we received his input, and he fixed the loopholes we missed and pointed it out to us to fix. But otherwise he said the contract seems fair and that the document should cover everything. We made 2 copies of it, one for the village and one for me. I signed both copies and so did Hashirama. I took out a sealing scroll and took a copy of the document and sealed it inside the scroll. Rolling the scroll up and putting it in my cloak, secretly in item box, and turned back to Hashirama and Tobirama. So Ayumi, what was the reason you decided to come here? Hashirama asked. Well, I'm heading out. Even though I said I would settle down and rest. I'm too young, I'll have to wait a few years before I'm able to settle down properly. Normally you wouldn't inform anyone until we just find out by ourselves. What's different? Tobirama asked. Well, that's true, but I was wondering if there was something you wanted me to do something for you while I'm traveling. I shrugged. I just wanted to ask. Well, I'm sure that this doesn't go against the contract, but do you have a map we could have? Tobirama asked. I thought for a second, but I shook my head, knowing that they wouldn't see world map, but then it clicked. If you can give me a large piece of paper, I can draw a map. I offered, then Hashirama slammed the desk and sat up. You've memorized the terrain of the world? The Hokage cried. 4. Just the territory and borders. My sweat dropped as his eyes started to sparkle. Tobirama gave me a large piece of paper with a brush and ink with multiple colors. I nodded and laid the paper on the floor and opened the black ink bottle and dipped the brush in it and started to draw. Once I was finished, I closed the caps of the ink bottles and sighed. Looking at the Hokage and his brother, seeing impressed imprinted on their faces. I didn't label the location of clan territory or estate because that would be giving out information for war, and this is the kind of map I'll give to other villages if they should ask for one. I explained. I stood up and stretched. Now, I'll be leaving. I went to the door and opened it, preparing to step out but turning around and winking. I'll try and visit when I become an aunt or even a grandaunt. Then I ran off, not before hearing a cry of embarrassment from Hashirama and laughing at it. 12 years later. 3. I rested in my apartment chair against the window, writing in a fresh journal. In the past 12 years, when I was traveling the world once again, most of the clans I once knew, just as I predicted, allied with each other, and made villages in each of the 5 great shinobi countries. When I visited those villages, I made and confirmed documents related to my relationship with the clans and villages, making sure that I would still have a good relationship with them even though I'm friends with their enemies. To add on, I showed each of the villages' heads the documents I made with another to confirm that my position as a neutral party, so that in all this my relationship would remain the same and would be equal with all of them. Also, during that time, I was summoned by the federal lords of each of the 5 great shinobi countries because from what they told me, my name had come up whenever they talked to the clans or villages' representatives. So I formed a relationship with each of the lords and I made a document with them, to secure my promise of what kind of situations and issues I will and won't involve myself in, and how I will involve myself if I do. I think I was in my early 30s, but I met an immortal bounty hunter by the name of Kakuzu. You would think from his appearance he would try and kill me or something, but he didn't, since he told me that I wasn't in the bingo book, there was no point. But we had a quick spar, me being the winner, and he told me that sooner or later I would be in the book and he would hunt me down. I only laughed at his words, but we part ways on good terms, and only later did I learn that he was assigned to an assassination, to kill Hashirama, but fortunately he failed. When I arrived in Konohagakure a year ago, I decided it would be best if I settled down in a village for at least a year. I learned that Hashirama had died in the First Shinobi War. But the good news was that I was able to Mito, and I learned that she had become Kurama's Jinchuriki. When she's sleeping, I visit Kurama and we talk for a bit, but I don't do it as often as I want to because from what I heard, Madara deflected the village and he used Kurama to attack the village. I kind of regret never saying goodbye to him. However, despite everything, I still hang out, train with the Uchiha clan, and they welcome me like I'm a member of their clan. I help take care of their children when they're busy and teach them a bit chakra control. Speaking of children, I met my grandniece. Though Tsunade, unfortunately received her grandfather's gambling habits. If I see him again, I will kick his ass. But anyways, I always hang out with her when I'm not already occupied with something already. 3. To add on, I met Tobarama's team. Homura Mitokado, Hiruzen Sarutobi and Kaharu Utatane. The ND Hokage, Tobarama, introduced me to them and he told them of our relationship. He told them to respect me for some reason, especially ever since I told him more of my adventures since I left. Still, I became close with Hiruzen like I became an aunt to him, which was pleasant. In addition, my overall level has risen a whole lot. Which is cool, even though I kind of maxed out on things to learn, but my stats for defense and intelligence has grown. Maybe I should improve on attack and agility even more. A decade later. I left Konoha a decade ago and I came back, last year, to learn that 2 years after I left to travel again, Tobarama was killed in the First War, sacrificing himself so that his team could escape and choosing Hiruzen to become his successor. 0. Hiruzen is now the 3rd Hokage. So, with that knowledge and the new clan heads, I used this opportunity to inform them of the document I had made with their first Hokage. They took the news quite well, except for the brat Danzo. He had accused me of forging the document, but the clan heads had fiercely defended me, since I had known them when they were young and since I was like family to them. Though they did question me, why I never aged, and I just told them it was a jutsu I casted on myself. Then I was introduced to Hiruzen's team, Tsunade, Jiraiya and Orochimaru. They will become a very powerful in the future from what I could tell. As I was Tsunade's grandaunt, our relationship became very close since when she wasn't busy with her training, I would teach her medical ninjutsu and chakra flow, giving her incredible strength. My relationship with Jiraiya was excellent, if you exclude the fact that he's a shameless pervert. Hiruzen too. Both perverts keep staring at my chest. I mean, it's not big but it's small at the same time. Off topic. So how our relationship between us became the level it's now is by telling him of my adventures as a traveler and because I would spar with him occasionally. Now my relationship with Orochimaru is unique. We respect each other for being prodigies and quietly understanding each other in a deep level for both of us being orphans since a young age. Sometimes Orochimaru would come to me for advice about some of his thoughts he had when Hiruzen couldn't give him an answer. Also, during the year I learned Konoha's Kinjutsu from the Forbidden Scroll. And thanks to that my stats improved incredibly. To add on, whenever I'm traveling, I don't just stay at Konoha. I stay at all the villages I made contracts with to maintain my relationship with them. Even in the time of war, my relationship with them hasn't changed a bit. Our connections with each other are almost unbreakable. Speaking of connections, from the relationships I've formed with the many villages across the world, I've received a large amount of money from them, so I'm wealthy. Heh, though I normally don't show it off. 21 years later. 3. I'm 70 years old, yay tilde. You can tell by my sarcastic tone that it feels weird to be this old but not be dead yet and not to have aged at all. But despite that, the wars are over, and I can breathe a lot easier now, knowing that. But I lost my grandnephew. Orochimaru deflected the village and Hiruzen's team no longer reside in the village. Although despite all the bad things that had happened while I was gone, I met new people like Chiyo's grandson, Sasori, Jiraiya's students from the Hidden Rain village, Nagato, Konan and Yahiko, the last known member of the Hoshigaki clan, Kisame, and Jiraiya's student, Minato. When I went to the village hidden in the sand, I met up with my friend Chiyo and she introduced me to her grandson Sasori. While I was there, I was informed that the young redhead was learning puppetry and that he had an innate aptitude for it. So I gave him a puppet that I used when I was first learning the skill. The puppet was hand-carved myself and we had a good time. A very quiet relationship between us, and he had even asked me about medicine and poisons. Though, I did help him decipher different plants and their purposes. I never taught him how to make poisons, just medicines for symptoms. How I met with Jiraiya's students is by, when I had caught Jiraiya peeping at a hot spring when I was visiting a hot spring town, and we chatted for a bit, after I beat the life out of him, catching up on things I missed back at the village. He's the one who informed me of Orochimaru's deflection and their naming from Hanzo as the legendary Sannin. Then he mentioned orphans he trained in the Hidden Rain village and I asked him about them. Their personalities, physical look, etc. Thanks to him, I had a reason for going to the Hidden Rain village and there I met them. At first, they attacked me, thinking I was an enemy, but over time I convinced them I wasn't. From there we formed bonds and we truly connected with each other. But when it was my time to go, they tried to stop me, and I could only look at them with heartbreak. I told them I didn't want to leave, but I had to because of my selfish wishes of wanting to continue traveling the world. They let me go and told me to visit them. How I met Kisame was when I went to the village hidden in the mist. He was being picked on by the villagers and I guess I saved him? But after I met him, I showed him the charm that was given to me by his predecessors and we connected. I brought him to the place given to me by the village and told him of my adventures. When I told him my story, I could tell he enjoyed it and then he asked me to teach him the basic of swordsmanship. I had to think about it for a few hours, but I accepted. I taught him for the year I was there and when I left, I gave him a simple but sturdy sword to have to use to remember me and to use. Finally, Minato Namikaze the Yellow Flash. How I met him was by Jiraiya directly introducing me to him and his girlfriend Kushina Uzumaki, Kurama's second Jinchuriki. Mito died, but then again, I was able to say a proper goodbye since I rushed to the village when I received a letter from her that she was in her last few days. But anyways, Jiraiya had introduced me to Minato as his grandaunt and we clicked. Having a simply wonderful relationship between us. When he became the Hokage, I made sure to show him the contract and document that I made with Hashirama, as it was important for him to have knowledge on. Also, he introduced me to his students, Kakashi Hatake, Rin Nohara and Obito Uchiha. This group of children are nice. I knew Obito around the same time I met Itachi and we had an okay relationship, we never got too close. As for Rin, we hung out together at a few dango shops and dessert shops. As she had a talent with medical ninjutsu, I taught her a few advanced techniques and our relationship was a bit better than okay. And finally, Kakashi. He seems quite cocky and closed off, but I sparred with him a few times. Though, that's only when he's around other people. When he's with me, he always asks me to tell him of my adventures around the world and I did. His eyes would light up in wonder when he listened. So I suppose out of Minato's 3 students, I'm closest to Kakashi. He calls me Granny, which is nice I suppose. Speaking of the Uchiha, when I was in the beginnings of my 70s, I was able to meet Fugaku and Makoto's son, Itachi. He's such an adorable little kid. I told them that I would kidnap him one day and take him with me on my travels. But I always told him I was joking until one day they had asked me to be his godmother. I of course accepted it with a smile. I met these children in Minato when I was in my 60s. Sasori being first when I was 6, Kisame when I was 65, the Hidden Rain Orphans when I was 66, Minato and his students when I was 69 and Itachi when I was 70. So I spent my 40s I spent that time training in the land of the toads in Senjutsu, revisiting villages I made connections to when I was younger, I think when I was in my zeros. During my 50s, I stayed in the village hidden in the clouds and raised a young boy who later became the 4th Raikage's tag partner. 8. But now in the present, after all these new adventures, I made sure to record them in my journal, filling out dozens of journals and putting it in item box. Minato just became the 4th Hokage and he recently married Kushina. But when I was getting information about the people I met, Nagato, Konan and Yahiko were said to have died a year after I had left them. I do have some regrets, but I can't do anything about it. It's like when I remember that I'm immortal so I can't die and join my deceased friends wherever they are. But all I can do now is live for them, knowing that they'll be watching over me. Now I'm currently in my home in my pajamas, they're gray silk Japanese-style pajamas, once again writing in my journal recording my day. Until a loud bang from my door. I sighed while snapping my book shut and putting said book into item box. I got off the couch and walked to the door, opening it in the process. Behind the door stood the current Nara clan head with a smirk on his face. "You want another game, Shikaku?" I asked, and when he nodded, I could only sigh. "Hold on a second, let me get change." Ever since the war ended and I came to Konoha to rest it for a few years, the Nara head kept repeatedly challenging me to games of shogi since I kept repeatedly beating him, and whenever I tried fake losing, he would always catch me in the act and force me to play at my full strength. In honesty, due to these games I got a new title because of it. Name: Ayumi. Family name: blocked. Age: 70. Titles: Reincarnated, Child Beloved by the Sage of Six Paths, Sharing on User, Prodigy, Craftsman, or Woman, Traveler, friend of all tailed beasts, friend of many clans, shinobi goddess, sage, master of shogi, holder of many contracts, the true neutral of war. 6. Level 683. Clan, friend, Aburame, Akamichi, Fuma, Hoshigaki, Hyuga, Inazuka, Kurama, Nara, Sarutobi, Senju, Shimura, Uchiha, Uzumaki, Yamanaka, etc. Chakra control, max. Chakra sensing, max. Chakra 0, 49,580 over 0, 49,580. Nature chakra. N.A. Tailed beast shared chakra. 4,500,000 4,500,000. Attack. Max, +5. Defense. Max, +4-3. Agility. Max, +7-6. Int. Max, +8-9. Luck. Max. Jutsu categories. Ninjutsu, 00%. Taijutsu, 00%. Genjutsu, 00%. Jutsu subcategories. Fuinjutsu, 00%. Juinjutsu, 00%. Senjutsu, 00%. Medical ninjutsu, 00%. Kenjutsu, 00%. Barrier ninjutsu, 00%. Bukajutsu, 00%. Chakra flow, 00%. Clone techniques, 00%. Reincarnation ninjutsu, 00%. Shurikenjutsu, 00%. Kenjutsu, 00%. Chakra natures. Fire, 00%. Water, 00%. Earth, 00%. Wind, 00%. Lighting, 00%. Yin, 00%. Yang, 00%. Yin-yang release, 00%. Advanced chakra natures. Boil, 00%. Lava, 00%. Magma, 00%. Magnet, 00%. Mud, 00%. Phasing, 00%. Flight, 00%. Gravity, 00%. Ice, 00%. Dark, 00%. Storm, 00%. Swift, 00%. Typhoon, 00%. Wood, 00%. Kekkei Genkei. Sharingan, Rinne. 3. Curse. Immortality, cannot be broken. Bonds. Kurama, 9-tailed beast. Gyuki, 8-tailed beast. Chome, 7-tailed beast. Seiken, 6-tailed beast. Kakuo, 5-tailed beast. Son Goku, 4-tailed beast. Isobu, 3-tailed beast. Matababi, 2-tailed beast. And Shukaku, 1-tailed beast. Additional skills. Item box, max. Super growth, max. World map, max. Hobbies. Embroidery, advance. Cooking, advance. Metalworking, advance. Shogi, advance. 3. I pulled my classic outfit and put it on quickly, braiding my loose untamed curly long hair into its classic thick braid with a teal ribbon to tie the end of it. Heading back to the door, slipping my black slippers on, grabbing my bag, and opening the door to see the Nara head still waiting for me. I only sighed as I closed the door to my apartment and locked it with my key. Walking with him to my next 8 hours worth of shogi games. 7 years later, age 77, I feel so old but look like in my early 20s because of my curse. In the first 4 years I left Konoha to go and visit all the hidden villages in the 5 great shinobi countries. Now that I think about it, I've met every single cage assigned to each of the hidden villages in each of the 5 great shinobi countries. Which is cool, I guess. Anyways, during that time, I also met with the new Jinchurikis of the tailed beasts located outside of the Land of Fire. I only met with them briefly, so my relationship didn't go farther than someone I met a long time ago. But it's okay, it's not my goal to become friends with all the people in the whole world. It's just to travel the world and indulge in its riches, but that's it. If I remember correctly, whenever I told some my goal, they will laugh or giggle at it, think it was a good goal. I think. But this time when I visited the villages I have a relationship with, I would give them a warning, something I've never done, but I believe is now necessary. I tell them, if you become my enemy, I will hold no mercy for you until that changes. How I determine them as an enemy is by lying, attacking, or holding ill will against me. Also, if they proclaim me as an enemy, obviously, and if they anger me to the point where I believe it to be unacceptable. Speaking of which, when I visited the villages and asked them about the children I met from my previous visits, they gave me a scowl and told me they deflected the village and they're considered as rogues. So, I got myself a bingo book from each village from a cage, after I asked for one. In the 4th year of my travels, I met up with Jiraiya and from him, I learned some of his personal moves like Rasengan and some of his toad-based ninjutsu. From him, I learned what missed back at Konoha. Minato and Kushina both died, their son became Kurama's 3rd Jinchuriki, Obito and Rin both became KIA victims, and Hiruzen resumed office until further notice. 5. In the 5th year of my traveling, I found Tsunade and met her student Shizune. From there I traveled with her, sometime loaning her money for her gambling, and gambling myself, making use of my max luck stats. I felt bad for Shizune, not only did she have to deal with my drunk gambler grandniece, but she had to deal with me, her grandaunt that won't stop her from her gambling. I could only pity her poor soul and Tun, the little pig that Shizune holds. On my 6th year I revisited Iwagakure and met a young boy of the name Deidara. He had an innate affinity to explosion jutsu, and I might have taught him the beauty of explosions. Just a little though. I took him out of the village sometimes so I could teach him a little and so he could practice. Since then Deidara would always talk how art should be a short explosive art. So on my 7th year, present time, I went back to Konoha, and I thought hard but decided I'm going to retire for a couple years instead of one in the village hidden in the leaves. I made sure to send letters to the big-name villages and inform them that I probably won't visit for a long time. When I returned, I immediately went to my apartment to clean, dust was resting everywhere, and I kept sneezing, so I used a wind jutsu to blow it all out. After I cleaned my house, I visited the clans that resided in the village, just to say hello and meet the newest generation. Though when I went to the Hyuga estate, I learned about the Hyuga affair and the death of Hiyoshi's twin brother, Hizashi, and the truth of the incident. I made sure to give them my condolences for not being able to help with settling it, but all they did was pity me and the situation I was placed in as a neutral. Then I went to the Uchiha estate to visit my godson, but I saw that there was a duplicate of him. I panicked until Makoto came to me and calmed me down, explaining what was going on. At the same time, she asked me to be her second son, Sasuke's godmother as well. I laughed at the realization, I felt so stupid. But in the end, I played a bit with my new godson until Itachi came to the estate. I said my greetings and introduced myself to him, explaining how I met him and when, since he was only 4 years old when I saw him last time. The final place I went to was the Nara estate as I knew Shikaku would instantly make me play shogi with him. And just as I called it, I was stuck at the estate for many hours. Thankfully during that time, I met the Nara heir, Shikamaru, and played a game against him well. He calmed me troublesome and of course I hit him in the head. Then it became dark and I excused myself, they tried to stop me, but I left despite them begging me to stay and play more shogi with them. 3. Now I was walking in the village, going to eat Shiraku ramen to get some dinner. When I arrived, sitting down at the seating ordering a bowl of miso ramen with pork. A blonde hair, blue-eyed boy with whiskers and green goggles jumped on the seat next to me and cried out his order of ramen. When I looked closer at the boy, he looked like Minato. Hello, the young Minato lookalike looked at me. My name is Ayumi, what's your name? My name is Naruto Uzumaki, believe it. And I'm going to become Hokage one day. Naruto proclaimed. So, he is Minato and Kushina's son. I've never seen you around the village. Miss Ayumi, are you a visitor? Not necessarily, I'm more like a traveler, so I've been to Konoha many times before you were born and Naruto, you can call my granny Ayumi. I giggled. Tucci placed our order of ramen in front of us. Granny? But you look so young, believe it. Naruto cried. Well, looks can be deceiving. I laughed, picking up my chopsticks, breaking them in half and lifting some noodle from the bowl and placing it in my mouth, slurping it up. So Naruto, how old are you? He looked at me, a stack of empty bowls besides him, and lifted a hand with all 5 fingers extended and he smiled. I'm 5 years old, believe it. He put his hand down and looked at me curiously. Granny Ayumi, why don't you treat me like the villagers? What do you mean Naruto? Surprised by the question. 3. Well, people except for my friends Shikamaru and Choji, and Tucci and Ayame, believe it. He looked at his half-empty bowl with sadness. Everyone in the village treats me like a monster. Calling me the fox demon and hurting me, looking at me with mean looks. It's the same in this village too? I looked at Tucci to confirm and he only looked at me mournfully. I clicked my tongue and put a bag of money on the table. Dinner's on me, Naruto, eat as much as you want. His eyes sparkled and he ordered another bowl of ramen, only thinking of the ramen while I was thinking about the long scolding I was going to give Hiruzen when I saw him next. A week later, after I had meal with Naruto that night, I went straight to Hiruzen, a burning fire in the background, expressing my smoldering anger. From that night and until morning, we had a chat, and in the end, I barely stopped myself from breaking off my relationship with Konoha. But I knew if I did that, I would do the same with the other hidden villages. I only sighed. But afterwards, I apologized for my outburst and we caught up on things that we missed in each other's lives. Then the next day, he introduced me to the Anbu and Junin level shinobi in the village, explaining to them who I was and how I should be treated. I only sweat dropped and I had to interfere before he said too much, but I saw many familiar faces in the room. I saw Kakashi in a corner, wearing the Anbu uniform and reading an orange book with a dispassionate look, but I could tell he wasn't even reading the book. He was listening to Hiruzen. Afterwards, I left Hiruzen's side and went to Kakashi, snatched his book away and invited him to hang out with me for the day. He accepted and we went to a dango shop. He told me what transpired in the years I wasn't present for and I told him of my adventures again. During our day out, Mike Guy came and challenged Kakashi. When he tried to decline, I coughed, and he looked over to see a small flame on my fingertip and his precious book barely touching the flame. His reaction was very entertaining and, in the end, I returned his book and Kakashi went along with Guy to do the challenge. For the rest of the week, I hung out at various clan estates and had chats with them, or with the Nara clan, paying hours of shogi. I also started a few hobbies and because of that I received new hobbies listed on my status plate. But there isn't a lot of things so far, but it'll might improve over time. 7 years later, I sat on the couch in the living room, rereading one of my journals from past years, laughing a bit from the memory of the sight of the Hokage's faces in the Hokage rock, vandalized with paint from a few days ago. It was quite a sight. In these past few years, 2 years after I arrived in Konoha, the Uchiha massacre took place, Itachi killing every one of them except for Sasuke. Speaking of the boy, he now lives with me since I am his godmother. I have called me Granny Ayumi since I refused to have him replace me as his mother. Also a few months before I took in Sasuke, I adopted Naruto as well. I asked Hiruzen to do so because I didn't want him to grow up completely parentless and he accepted. Now the two are adopted brothers, though they do butt heads when I'm not looking. 3. But back to the Uchiha massacre. After it took place, I immediately went to Hiruzen to figure out what happened and when I learned the truth, I fell to my knees and cried. It was the first time I cried in years, from the time I first injured Izuna, to the death of Hashirama, Tobirama and Mito. But after I calmed down, I brought up the adoption of Sasuke to Hiruzen, telling him I was chosen to become his godmother. Danzo tried to stop me from adopting him, claiming that I didn't have the capabilities to take care of him since I already adopted Naruto and since I'm a traveler. I of course just informed them I would stay in the village until they were of age to take care of themselves and I asked him what kind of requirements I was missing. He didn't say anything but scowled at me. The process of my adoption of Sasuke went smoothly and I also purchased a 4-bedroom suite and sold my 1-bedroom apartment. When I was shopping for their furniture, let me tell you it was quite the journey. Sasuke wanted everything to be simple while Naruto wanted a loft bed. I made sure to get them the things they wanted for their rooms. They argued with each other for some strange reason, judging each other because of their tastes. It was funny but annoying at the same time. Then at the end of it, we took a group photo. I was smiling while holding the two on their shoulders. Naruto had a huge grin on his face with a thumbs up and Sasuke surprisingly had a small smile across his face. It was a nice photo. In the first few years after I adopted them both, I told Sasuke why Itachi did what he did and then Sasuke accused me of lying and asked me why Itachi told him to kill him, and I responded by telling him, "Itachi did it to protect you." Sasuke had teared up and started to cry. Of course I hugged him, rubbing his back to soothe him. Then Sasuke proclaimed that he'll save his brother and that he'll seek revenge against the people who made Itachi commit such a despicable act. As for Naruto, I explained to him why the villagers acted the way they do to him. I told him that Kurama or I told Naruto the 9-tailed fox resides within him. Then he started to ask me why they treat him like Kurama. And I simply told him that for them the prison and the prisoner are considered the same in their eyes. Though I wasn't supposed to tell them these secrets, I informed them that if they told anyone I would probably get in trouble for it, so they promised to keep it a secret that I told them, but if anyone asked how they know of it, they'll just say they figured it out on their own. Also in the past few years, I taught them a few jutsus and chakra control so that they'll be ahead from everyone else for the graduation exam. I also taught them about history and things they'll need to know when become shinobis. At the present time, summoned my status board to see what had changed. Name: Ayumi. Family name: blocked. 5. Age: 84. As you can tell, my status has improved, and just because I'm raising children doesn't mean that I can stop training. Also, I have a whole lot more hobbies listed. When you're rich, don't have a job and have lots of free time, it allows you to gain a lot of hobbies. Now, in the current time, Naruto and Sasuke are both at the academy learning from Iruka. What the funniest part is that they're probably bored out of their minds since they're ranked street and ND highest in their grades. It's my fault. I drilled the information they'll be learning in the academy into their heads when they asked me to teach them. Now that I think about it, today's their graduation exam, I hope they do well. I dismissed the status board and continued to read my journal, remembering when I experienced the story in it in real life, the people I met, but for some, I can't see again because their current state of being doesn't allow me to. Like not being alive or being labeled as a criminal, so it's best if I didn't meet with them. I shook my head. Now I should think of the present. Then that hit me, time, oops. I looked at the clock and it was 10 minutes before I was supposed to be at the academy to pick up Naruto and Sasuke. I closed my journal and put it in item box, quickly jumping from my seat, quickly changing out of my pajamas and braided my hair into a think braid. Quickly grabbing my bag and teleporting to the pickup area for the academy students. Just in the nick of time, parents started to enter the area, waiting for their children to come out. I walked over to the swing that hung on the lone tree. In a few minutes, the students came out of the doors and I saw Sasuke and Naruto come out. Naruto wearing a big grin on his faces while Sasuke came out smirking, both holding a headband with a metal plating that adorns the Konoha symbol. I waved them over to me. When they saw me, they instantly ran to me. Granny Ayumi, we both passed the test, believe it? Naruto exclaimed. Sasuke hummed. I raised both of my hands and rubbed their heads. 3. Great job, boys, you deserve your headbands. I smiled. Now, if I remember correctly, when we get home, I have a surprise to give you. Their expressions brightened up and they grabbed my hands, starting to drag me away from the academy. We walked back home without any stops, and when we approached the door to our suite, they let go of my hands and let me open the door. Once the door was opened, they ran inside, after they took off their shoes, and straight to the living room. I walked inside taking my time. I heard Naruto call once or twice for me to hurry up. I hung my bag on the wall and walked inside, going to my room to retrieve their surprise. 2 jewelry boxes, containing their surprises. I walked back out to the living room to see Naruto twitching in excitement, trying to stay still, and Sasuke sitting next to him looking impassive, or at least pretending to. If you looked at his eyes, they were sparkling with anticipation. I sat in the middle between them and handed them a box. They opened it and revealed a sun and crescent moon necklaces. The sun with Naruto and the crescent moon with Sasuke. Granny Ayumi, what is this? Sasuke asked. Well, they're necklaces I made. I explained. I thought you could use them to remember me when you're on long-term missions outside the village. I blushed, then I stood up. Well, time to get dinner ready. I tried escaping, but I was trapped between 2 pairs of arms. 3. Thanks, Granny Ayumi. They thanked, and my face stopped flushing and I hugged them back. 5. Of course, after all, you are my grandsons. I smiled at them. Now I need to get dinner ready. Would you guys like to read some of my journals while you wait? They nodded excitedly and sat back on the couch. I went back into my room and opened item box, taking out a few of my journals for them to read. I walked back out, holding a stack of my journals with me, dropping them off in the living room before heading to the kitchen to start making dinner. A few days later, after my grandsons had graduated from the academy, Naruto was asked by Mizuki to have a chat with him, and I let him go, knowing that since he graduated from the academy, he's responsible to make his own choices. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Naruto didn't come home that night and I was informed by Hiruzen that Mizuki had tricked Naruto into stealing the Forbidden Scroll. The reason being, he wanted to impress me with a jutsu he learned all on his own. Mizuki had tried stealing the scroll from Naruto and Iruka had arrived in time to save him, thankfully. In the end, Naruto learned Shadow Clone Jutsu. Iruka was sent to the hospital to tend to his injuries and Mizuki was sent to T and I to be questioned. All was well. But I still scolded Naruto for stealing the scroll in the first place. Present time, I sat once again in my pajamas and reading my journal, eating some dango I made this morning for lunch, all this happening in the living room. Such a peaceful time, so peaceful until we're home, believe it. My energetic son cried, running in the living room. Sasuke behind him, looking impassive as always. So what team were you assigned to? I asked, putting down my journal. They walked up to me and sat on the couch with me. We were assigned together, along with Sakura and Kakashi-sensei as our squad teacher. Sasuke informed, though Sakura is real annoying, and Kakashi-sensei. I can't believe he's Junin ranked, he fell for Naruto's trap. But the worst part is that we have to wake up really early, not eat breakfast tomorrow for a survival exercise Kakashi-sensei is giving us, believe it? Naruto cried. He said that if we don't pass, then we'll be put back into the academy, believe it? Sasuke only grunted at his words, which for me meant he confirmed it. I see, how early do you plan on waking up? I asked. They responded by telling me around 5 in the morning. Well, sleep in till 8 and I'll make breakfast for you. They tried to retort saying that they'll be breaking the rules. How late was he? They stayed quiet and I could tell he was extremely late to meeting up with them, and I sighed, remembering when Kakashi was always be on time. In the end, they gave up arguing with me and gave up, knowing that they couldn't win. Also, if this is a survival test, then it's best to work as a team, kinda like how you two worked together to fight against me. Their eyes lit up like light bulbs and they ran to Naruto's room to start planning. 7 in the morning. I woke up, the light of the rising sun cracking through my curtains, groaning as I sat up, the blanket falling to my lap. I rubbed my eyes and removed the blanket covering me and walked to the bathroom to complete my morning routine of brushing my teeth and smoothing out my hair. Once I was done, I went straight to the kitchen and started to make breakfast, knowing that they'll come out of their rooms in about 40 minutes. I prepared pancakes, fruit, and smoothies. Right when I was done making them, I heard them come out of their rooms walking to the kitchen to get dishes for all three of us, plates and utensils. I brought out the food and placed it in the middle of the table, making it buffet style. We said our thanks and began eating our breakfast. In about 30 minutes, Naruto and Sasuke finished their food, put their dishes in the sink to be cleaned and left to go to their training exercise. Once I finished my own meal, I stood up and used a gravity jutsu, making the dishes float, and I guided them to the kitchen to be washed. Placed them in the sink and picked up a sponge, beginning my dishwashing adventure. 9. Another few days later, I was sitting on the couch once again reading, but this time I wasn't reading one of my journals, I was reading Make Out Paradise, a novel that Jiraiya wrote and published. I thought it would be nice to read, because described some of his adventure and that was nice, but still, it's a perverted book so I don't read it when the boys are around. Granny Ayumi, we got a C-rank mission, believe it? Naruto cried, running to his room. We need to pack, we're leaving the village, believe it? Sasuke only walked to his room nodding and I sighed. I see. Do you need help and what's your mission? I asked. Naruto came out of the room, with a backpack on his back with a huge grin. We're all good. Our mission is to escort a builder back to his home in the land of waves, believe it? Naruto cried. Come on Sasuke Teme, we need to hurry. Sasuke came out of his room with a scoff and walked over to me, giving me a hug. Naruto instantly ran to me, to give me a hug as well. 4. Well, you need to be careful, okay? Even though this mission is low ranked and even though you're shinobi, you must always be on guard and observe your surroundings in a case of an ambush. I warned. Make sure to listen to Kakashi and keep each other safe. They nodded at my words and ran out the door to start their mission. When they left, I pulled Make of Paradise and continued the novel. Few weeks later, Sasuke and Naruto returned home uninjured from my eyes, but Sasuke has the Sharingan and Naruto's seal weakened considerably more from the last time I saw it, making me believe that something went on during the mission, so I went to find Kakashi and interrogate him for answers. And I got them all right, but I wasn't angry at him, And during that time I was informed on other things like the Chunin exams and how Sasuke and Naruto were recommended by him to take them. I only nodded and left, simply to be interrupted by an Anbu member to see Hiruzen and Ibiki. As I reached the door to the Hokage office, I knocked on the door entering after I did. "Hello Hiruzen, Ibiki, you wanted to speak with me?" I asked as I stood in front of him, Ibiki by his side. "Yes, I was wondering if you wanted to help out in the Chunin exams taking place in a few days." Ibiki spoke. "By doing what? I'm not technically a shinobi of this village, so how would I help? As we've come to understand, despite you not being an official shinobi, you have the skills of one. Your rank would easily match mine." Hiruzen stated. "Free. And where did you get that impression from?" "From Lord Second, Kakashi, Jiraiya, Tsunade, members and clan heads of multiple. No, all of the clans. Must I go on?" I sweat dropped at Hiruzen's choice of words but shook my head. "They all informed me that you are a master of all jutsus, a true beast. I've heard that you have incredible strength and power, even if you don't use chakra. A taijutsu master like Guy, but more experienced I should say. I'm sure that with all of these people saying these things, repeatedly with no gaps, you exceed any requirements need to become a shinobi." I simply nodded. "Free. So what do you need me to do?" I asked. "Nothing much. I just want you to transform yourself into a younger version of yourself and take the first part of the exam. That's all." Ibiki chuckled. "What is the first part?" I asked. "It's an information gathering based test. Since I'm sure you have the knowledge to answer these questions." Ibiki handed me a slip of paper and I read it, widening my eyes as I saw how easy it was to me, but I could tell it would almost be impossible for Genin-ranked children to answer. "So you want me to take the test, in hope that they'll cheat off my paper?" I smirked. "That sounds fun, but don't I need to have a team?" Hiruzen shook his head. "No, we'll just have you enter the exams solo, saying that your team was in an accident, so you were forced to go by yourself." Hiruzen explained. "Well, that sounds fun, I'm in, and since I'm just helping out with something that multiple villages are involved in, I'll still remain as a neutral to the villages." I giggled, then I transformed into my 8-year-old self in different clothes. I had elbow-length white, silver hair that was put into a tight bun, my eyes being black, and I was wearing a deconstructed black and red kimono with a black mask, kinda like Kakashi's. "Is this good?" I asked. Hiruzen and Ibiki looked at me in shock, but they broke out of it and nodded. "Yes, I'm sure that no one would recognize you." Hiruzen coughed. "Here's a headband you can borrow for the exams." He handed me a black fabric headband with the Konoha mark. I held it in my hand as I transformed back into my other clothes and to my normal age. I excused myself and teleported back home, preparing myself from the exam in a few days. A few days later, I walked into the building where the first part of the exam was taking place, going to room 30. When I was on the second floor of the building, I saw a sign that said 30 on it, but I instantly knew that it was a genjutsu, so I just passed it, going up the next stairs to where the exam room was essentially being held. When I reached the room, I saw many genins waiting in there, looking at me as I walked in and took a seat. I pulled out one of my journals and started to read it. Then out of the blue someone sat right next to me and asked, "What is your name?" I looked at the boy and he was Lee, one of Guy's students. "My name is Kyoko." I closed-eyed smiled, remembering that I was in my 8-year-old form with different clothing on. "Do you have some business with me?" "Yes." He stood up and offered a hand to me. "My name is Rock Lee. Kyoko, will you be my girlfriend? I promise to protect you until I die." His teeth sparkled and I only smiled at him pitifully. "I'm sorry, but I'm not looking for a romantic relationship at the moment, so I'll have to refuse." I apologized. He had a purple storm cloud over his head, and he began to sulk, muttering about being rejected twice. Then the door opened, and I saw my grandsons enter, easily attracting the attention of everyone in the room. I saw a pink-haired girl with them, looking a bit pale from the looks of it. Then Ino ran up to them and jumped on Sasuke's back. His expression was super funny, I've never seen him like this. I had to hold in my giggles. The ladies started to fight, and all of the genin rookies started to interact with each other, causing a commotion. I closed my journal and put it in item box secretly under the table so no one would see. Then a gray hair boy joined them and introduced himself as Kabuto. He smelled like a certain snake I knew. He brought out cards and spoke of information that should classified. Then I saw Sasuke point at my surprisingly, and the boy Kabuto used his jutsu to search up on information on me, which he wouldn't get. There's no information on her. How? The gray-haired boy looked at me in confusion and I only waved at him in response. I stood from my spot and body flickered over to them. Sorry, but I suppose that my information is classified. Just like what you speak of should be classified as well. I smirked at him as he gave a small scowl at me. I bowed slightly and left, but not before having to cover my ears from Naruto's loud proclamation that he wouldn't lose to anyone in the room. I only sighed and continued my walking until it hit me. 3 genins were approaching me at high speed, preparing to attack. I held Hoshiko, preparing to unsheath her as they came at me, one throwing knives and another one preparing to punch me. I only sighed and kept Hoshiko sheathed as I caught the knives and the fist that attempted to punch me. That's not very nice. I smiled, releasing some ki, then I raised my hand and blocked a sound jutsu from hitting me. I let go of my attacker's hand and he jumped back. Now if you excuse me, I think I want to return to my seat. I brushed past them and returned to the place I was sitting, eyes on me as I strode past them. When I sat back down, Ibiki and a few of his subordinates that work in the same division as him appeared with him in a cloud of smoke. Ibiki told everyone in the room to shut up. All the attention that was on me before was now on Ibiki as the smoke dispersed. Once it was gone, he introduced himself to the genin. Ibiki then pointed out the hidden sound genin and told them they couldn't do as pleased before the start of the exam and threatened them to fail them, telling them that if they screw with him, he'll disqualify them. Then he started to give out instructions about the test. I walked up to them and handed in my fake application, receiving a number that put me in the front of the room as I walked in the room where we'll be taking our test. I waited for Ibiki to give out the rules as the face-down test laid on the desk with a pencil innocently lying next to it. When Ibiki explained the rules, I heard Sakura, I believe that's her name, question the total points for the teams. He only told her to shut up and he continued explaining the rules. What hit me was the number of rules for cheating. I mean, I already knew the point of this stage, but with all of these rules it basically had them cheat. He started the test, and I flipped the paper face up and started to answer the questions on the test. Some of my neighbors sitting next to me looked at me in shock as I wrote my answers very quickly and with ease. When I finished, I pulled out my journal and read, looking at Ibiki once and smirked at him. He only smirked back at me. I only giggled, remembering that I didn't teach anything on the test to my grandsons. They'll probably come to me and ask me to teach them new materials. I put my journal down and retraced my answers on my test, hoping that they would realize the point of the test. An hour had passed and many of the participants had been kicked out for being caught one too many times cheating. During that time, I saw that one of the observers was a puppet. There's no way that the other observers didn't notice. Then there were bugs flying around, strings on mirrors. Many ways they were cheating, they were creative or basic, but still they got the job done. Many of the participants had fought against the observers as they were kicking them out. Then Ibiki told them time was up, then he added rules to the 10th question. They were quite tough, considering that if they chose wrong, they were out. Before he asked them to choose, he called me out. Ayumi, I think it's best if you reveal yourself now. I smirked and stood up, everyone staring at me. I released my transformation jutsu and looked at the surviving genin in the room. The Ibiki explained why I was there, and I only continued to grin at his words. Well, I'll be heading out, hope to see you again. I looked at the young shinobi in the room, a shadow over my eyes. If you survive long enough to see me. Then I teleported out of the room and to my home where I changed into my pajamas and slept for the rest of the day. 2 days later, I was Hiruzen's office, standing there as he looked at me gravely. We've received word that Orochimaru has infiltrated the village. He looked at me. I want you to leave for a few days, just until the Chunin exams are over. I slammed my hand on the desk, cracking it in the process. Why do you want me to leave? I'm strong enough to protect myself, so why are you making me leave? I cried. Because we were informed you were one of the targets he's after, and if we let you get kidnapped in our village, not only will we invoke the wrath of the other hidden villages, but it will also invoke the wrath of the feudal lords of the 5 great shinobi countries. Hiruzen sighed. I know myself from experience that you are a strong person, probably even more powerful than Lord First, but still. I only exhaled in defeat. 3. Fine, for 4 weeks I will leave on a short journey outside the village. I groaned. Please make sure to keep my grandsons safe, they're the only reason why. Nethermind. You know what I mean. I had smoke surround me and quickly pulled my cloak out of item box and put it on. Well, I'll get going. See you again, Lord Hokage. I teleported to the gates of the village. Nodding at the guards as I walked out and away from the place I called home for 7 years. 4 weeks later, I walked to the entrance of the gate, looking inside the gate seeing a half-destroyed village. I went to the Hokage Tower and asked to speak with Homura and Kaharu as I didn't see Hiruzen. When I saw them and asked what happened in my absence, they told me what had transpired. Hiruzen died. I fell to my knees when I heard that and Hiruzen's former teammates tried to cheer me up. Once I calmed down, they told me that Sasuke received a curse marked to his shoulder and that Jiraiya was going to take Naruto to look for Tsunade and bring her back to become the 5th Hokage. I nodded and ran home. When I arrived back at my suite, the building was still intact, so that meant that the area wasn't targeted. I opened the door and ran inside, looking for Sasuke, and there he was sitting on the couch. I instantaneously ran to him, hugging him, and he hugged me back. I apologized to him for leaving without his knowledge. Once we calmed down, I sat on the couch with him and looked at his shoulder to see the curse mark. Sasuke, do you wish for me to remove the curse mark? I asked. He nodded. Yes, after all you said that revenge is best served using your own power, and so, knowing that, I don't need the power of this curse mark to help me, Sasuke proclaimed, and I smiled at him. I see, very good. It seems like I drilled my lessons into your head well. Sasuke visibly flinched, probably remembering something, and I laughed. Then I sensed the Itachi and Kisame. Sasuke, I'll be back. I kissed his forehead and teleported away to the location of their signals. When I arrived at the scene, Guy, Kurenai and Asuma were already confronting them on the river, Kakashi being slung over Guy's shoulder. I teleported between them, drawing Benihime from her covering. Hello Granny Ayumi. Itachi greeted. It's been a few years, Ayumi-sensei. I simply nodded at their greetings and prepared Benihime. It's been a while, my students. Itachi, Kisame, you've grown. I smiled, then asking a question we all knew the answer to. Now let me ask you something, are you my enemy? I suppose we are. Kisame smirked and it instantly dropped when I released Ki. I might have known you when you were young, but that fact will not stop me from putting you down. I glared at them. Who have you come for? 2 people, that would be the legacy of the 4th N. Itachi pointed at me. You. I looked behind me and looked at the Junins' reactions to notice that they knew that they were after Naruto, but not me. I see. I released my Ki. You can try all you want, but I promise you that you'll have the hardest of times. So I suggest you leave, before I kill you. Kisame, let's go. The shark man looked at him. We didn't come for a war, and we'll need all of the members to receive Granny Ayumi. 3. Agreed. If Ayumi-sensei is here, there's no way we'll win with the 2 of us. Kisame clicked his tongue. Too bad, I was finally getting motivated. They teleported away and I turned to the Junin behind me. I need to leave. If I stay, I'll only put the village in danger. I sighed. I'll make sure to send letters to the clan heads to explain my sudden absence. They nodded to me and I teleported home, preparing letters to clan heads and to my grandsons. After I was done writing them, I instantly started to pack and change into my traveling outfit and my hooded cloak. Once I was done, I made a quick meal for Sasuke when he returns home and I put it in the fridge. I left the letters meant for Sasuke and Naruto on their beds in their rooms and teleported the other letters to the clan estates. I went to the door, locking the door and teleporting to the gate of the village once more before I ran. While I once again began my travels, I met up with Jiraiya and Naruto in the forest while we were walking. Naruto was ahead of us when we walked. Jiraiya, I can trust that you'll protect Naruto, right? I asked. Yes? Do you not trust me? Jiraiya raised a brow. Of course I trust you. After all, I knew you since you were young, and from my knowledge, I would trust you with my life. I huffed, then I paused before adding. I learned recently that the Akatsuki is after Naruto. I knew that as well, that's why. And me, I finished. I looked at Jiraiya and he was deep in thought. I'm not completely sure why they're after me, but I plan on staying away from the villages for a while, to assure that that organization won't target them when I'm there. Plus, so you're going to restart your journey? No, my journey never ended. It's wherever I am and whatever I'm doing. I smiled. I won't be with Naruto or Sasuke after I leave. I hope they can choose the right things for themselves. I sighed. Please don't tell Naruto until you're forced to. Of course, or I'll try. Jiraiya patted my head. Thanks. I teleported to the tree above and started to tree jump a different direction from them. A few months later, in a forest coated in heavy mist, standing in a circle surrounding me was the 9 members of the Akatsuki, clad in black coats with bright red clouds: Sasori, Kakuzu, Itachi, Deidara, Pain, Konan, Kisame, Hidan and Zetsu, black and white. And here I thought I did a good job hiding myself from you guys. Oh well. I chuckled. Ayumi-sensei, you weren't even hiding your presence, it was quite easy to track you. Kisame stated. And yet it took you this long to confront me. I hummed. So you plan on killing me? Even if we were planning on doing that, it'd be quite the difficult task. Pain stated. But, I trailed. Unfortunately, Grand Ayumi, because of your importance and connections you've made over the many years of your life, we've decided that you would be best suited to become a sacrifice to the 10 tails? I finished with a grin. I grabbed the hilt of Benihime and threatening unsheathed her, only an inch. It would be nice to see how my former students have grown over the years, see if you guys have been training or not. Be a shame if you haven't grown stronger. Also Hidan and Zetsu, it was a pleasure to meet you. Enough chit-chat, let's fight. Hidan cried as he launched himself, with scythe in hand, at me. I didn't completely unsheath Benihime to block his attack, instead I jumped back to dodge. Behind me Kakuzu brought his hand out, his steel threads, aimed at me. I jumped onto the steel threads and launched myself into the air to have Konan flying in the air with origami wings to attack me, with Deidara on a white bird of clay with spiders on his hands, ready to attack me. When Deidara released his spiders, I made a few hand motions to summon a mini tornado to distort Konan and blow the spiders away to the Akatsuki members below, which then exploded. I finally unsheathed Benihime and attacked Konan, effectively cutting both of her wings along with Deidara's bird and let them fall to the ground. I made a few more hand motions, making the air solidify where I stepped so I landed safely on the ground. Then I teleported in front of Kisame, striking with Benihime, and as a good student he was, he reacted quickly, drawing his own sword, and blocking the blow. When he came to strike back, I grabbed his hand and flipped him over my shoulder, throwing him at Sasori, who was preparing his puppets and poisons. I felt the presence of someone underneath me and I jumped, right before Zetsu appeared to attempt to grab me. Then origami paper surrounded me along with steel threads. I was trapped, or so they thought. Black rods and poisonous needles broke through the wall, and I blocked them 1 by 3 to 10 to 100 at a time, allowing none of them to touch me. Surrender, Grand Ayumi, you won't win. I heard Pain call as Deidara sent in his spiders. I sliced them as fast as they came, making sure that none of them exploded within the barrier. 3. Can I kill her? Lord Jashin would love to taste her blood. I heard Hidan cackle through the sound of metal. Then I saw red eyes and then darkness. When all the attacks stopped, I knew I was under a genjutsu. I could only laugh at my situation. I was incredibly proud of them, of those that I taught, seeing how much they had grown. Unfortunately, we all knew, except for Hidan and Zetsu, that the outcome was already decided when I activated my own Rinne Sharingan at the beginning of the battle. The moment I slipped Benihime out from her sheath to threaten them, it was my way to say that this battle was over the moment it began. I brought Benihime high into the air and sharply brought her down, breaking the genjutsu that Itachi casted, and brought forth reality. Each member of the Akatsuki was on the ground defeated. Sasori paralyzed with talismans covering his body. Kakuzu breathing heavily with 4 of his 5 hearts missing. Itachi smashed into the ground in a crater. Deidara's arms and feet were cut off from his body. Pain laid on the ground with black rods sticking from his body. Konan leaned against a tree drenched in water. Kisame was unconscious as his own sword ate away at his chakra. Hidan was in a pool of his own blood and sliced into parts. And Zetsu was shredded into many pieces. 3. This is the reason why I remain as a neutral, instead of choosing a side. If I chose a side, the side I had chosen would be the winner and the playing field would become unfair. Make sure you're more prepared the next time you see me. I sheathed Benihime and felt the blade shimmer in joy, as it had been many years since I had used it for blood. After all, her love of blood had given her the name of Crimson Princess. This time I went easy on you, as a formality for being my students, old companions, and noob. Hey, A familiar sadist cried but then fell back quiet as another wave of pain washed over his body once more. And before I leave, if you ever touch my grandsons, I will make you wish you were dead. I proclaimed. The trees, the walls, the shadows all have ears. So watch yourself. I then walked away from the murder scene behind me and continued my travels, hoping I could return home to my sons. What a pleasure it is, Tilda, to see you again. A snake hissed. Orochimaru, I want you to remove the cursed mark on Sasuke and I want you to train him. Oh, why not train himself yourself? The pale man teased. Or is it because you're scared? I scoffed at him. You should know that if I'm ever scared of anything, the situation would be dire. To the point where I might die in battle. But we both know that's impossible since out of the two of us, I'm a real immortal being. The man just tsked at my words, having nothing to say back since it was true. Besides that, I can't teach Sasuke because I know I'll be soft on him, and it won't help him improve. Not only that, but you're one of the legendary Sannin, I'm sure you'll define in teaching him. What if I make him defect the village? How will you react? I hummed in thought and Madara came into mind. If he chooses that path, I will let him walk it. It's not my place to make him walk a path not suited for him. I grinned. The worst thing I could do my sons is by taking away their independence, their freedom. So why not let them explore the unknown to the destination their trails lead to? I see. I suppose this will be the favor I own for everything you have given me in the past. I laughed at his wording. It's one of many favors I will ask for. Your debt is steep, and it will take a long time to repay, brat. So don't try to cut it short. I jokingly threatened. So you accept it? Yes, but don't expect me not to convert the Uchiha brat to the dark side. Against the hidden leaf, against all that is good in this ignorant world. Orochimaru smirked. Oh no, I expect you to. But I also expect that converting him will be a lot harder than you think it will be. I walked out of hideout and release a large amount of ki. After all, if you even think about hurting Sasuke, I will make sure you are eliminated properly, Orochimaru. That even your fake immortality can't bring you back. You understood. I glanced at him before teleporting away from him. I landed on patch of grass and enveloped myself with my cloak before walking down the forest path, shrouded by the forestry's natural canopy. And I continued walking before I felt a presence approach me. It's been a very long time since I last saw you, old man. I stated, not stopping my feet from walking. Indeed it has. How is the immortal life? The figure asked. A pain, Tilda. I paused before continuing. But without it, I wouldn't have met Naruto and Sasuke or anyone of this era which I have come to care about. So it's not too bad. But you remain as a neutral in every action made and opinion said. Because I've made many relationships who are different sides of an everlasting war. So I have to remain a neutral to maintain those relationships. Also, we both know that if I did choose a side there would be an automatic winner. I laughed. What about your sons? I stopped walking and hummed for a second before continuing my stroll. I said I'll support them, and I plan to hold that true, but I will not pick one over the other. I will support them as fairly as I can. So what was the real reason you came to me, Hagoromo? Well, I need your help. Hopefully you didn't kill another person and reincarnated them into this world, right? Are you holding a grudge against me? The old man started sweating profusely. I said I was sorry. I ignored him and continued walking, having a mental laugh as I heard him once again beg for my forgiveness like he did all those years ago. It was 2.5 years later since I met with Hagoromo, listening to a certain request of his. But nonetheless, after messing with him and giving him more gray hairs, I listened to his plea for assistance. Thankfully, he didn't repeat his mistake like he did with me but request that I help him at one point in time in the future, which I accepted, only if his request of his was reasonable. Though I did request that he unblock my family name, but the stubborn man profusely refused, stating that it would make me want to kill him. Not like I could since he's already dead, but anything's possible. At the moment I am heading home. Yes, I am heading back to the Hidden Leaf. To pay my respects to Hiruzen, who I should have come back sooner to pay my respect for. Even if he was a brat most of the time, I knew he only did it out of goodwill. To protect the village which he loves. As I approached the gate of the village I had not seen for so long, I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding and grinned. I wonder how Naruto and Sasuke are. I thought aloud as I passed the two sleeping gatekeepers. Things never change. I walked in the village, cloak on and walking silently. blending in with my surroundings. I'm home everyone. Naruto Uzumaki has returned to the Hidden Leaf Village. I heard, over the voices of the crowd in the market. I chuckled, almost breaking out in laughs at the coincidence of the timing of our return. Perhaps I should say my greetings. I really hope Jiraiya hasn't turned my son into a horrific pervert like him. Dang, I really should have thought that through. Those Sasuke and Orochimaru. What have I done? I internally shrugged, it's too late anyways. No point regretting it now that the damage has been done. Once I closed my thoughts, I walked to where I felt my sunshine of a grandson was and smiled as I imaged what he would look like now that he was older. I mean, come on Konohamaru, is that all you got? Now step aside and get a load of my brand new pervy ninjutsu. I heard my son proclaim, and I only sighed. I knew it, that pervy brat of a Sannin corrupted my grandson. Here we go. Are you kidding me? I heard a slam and was met with the sight of Naruto flying my direction head on. I stepped aside and let him continue his course, which his pink-haired teammate had sent him on. Watching as he crashed, creating a mini crater as he landed, with the mini Tsunade stomping her way towards him with tick marks covering her face. Then I watched her pull him out from the ground by the leg and then grab onto his collar, only to start shaking and lecturing him. With the genin becoming paler by the second. I was interrupted from the show when a hand went onto my shoulder, and I turned around to see Jiraiya standing there with a smug grin. Hello Grams, it's been a while. Indeed it has. I do hope I didn't make the wrong decision when I trusted you to train Naruto. I sighed once more while the Toad Sannin laughed. Well, it can't be too bad, right? I suppose so. I did trust that snake to train my grandson. So you training Naruto isn't the worst thing I've done. You did what? Pulled in a favor from the reptilian brat, that's all. I scoffed. So how did Naruto's training go? Well, let's say that he's good enough. But he soon grew a tick mark. But he's denser than a rock. He doesn't understand good literature. Oh? I looked at him, smiling. But we both knew the meaning behind the expression. What kind of literature? Well, would you look at the time? We really got to be heading to Tsunade to give our report on his progress over the past few years. Jiraiya squeaked. Sweating more than Hagoromo was when he thought I was holding a grudge against him. Plus, well, I'm sure she'll understand, considering it's me we're talking about. I gripped his shoulder, preventing him from leaving. So, what kind of literature have you exposed my grandson to, Brad? Sorry? My smile only widened as I brought out Benihime. Prepare for your funeral. A scream could be heard in the village that day as the legendary Sannin begged for mercy. It's been a long time since we last met, Great Aunt. How have you been? Tsunade asked, ignoring the painful groans produced from a certain Toad sage. Quite well, actually. I got to visit some old friends, trained with some tailed beasts, beat up the Akatsuki, hold up, ate dango, sounds normal enough. And created a new jutsu to travel worlds, never mind. I grinned. It was relaxing overall. Cue for many souls to fly out of their owners' bodies whose minds have been obliterated. I'll just ignore everything that has been said and move on, not even surprised anymore. Tsunade sighed. Naruto, I hope your training has proven to be fruitful. I hope. The lost souls of many have returned. I have someone I'd like for you to go up against. I've kept him off missions the last few days so he'd be ready for you. Tsunade explains. Proceed to end of conversation after Kakashi tells Sakura and Naruto to rest before their fight. Since today I am feeling extra slothful. See you around, Granny Ayumi. Naruto waved as he exited the door. I grinned at him, waving as he left. And I patiently waited till the room was empty before looking at Tsunade. No, I will not answer questions regarding the Akatsuki or my new jutsu. But I will be in a place where communication is only possible in emergencies. I handed her a scroll. Someone I met has requested I help them. So I plan on doing it. What about? Even if I'm physically far away from my grandsons, I always know their condition. I always have an eye on them. I take a deep breath before continuing. I came here to give my respect to Hiruzen before I left. But, I also wanted to congratulate you as well for becoming the 5th Hokage. I know you'll do a great job, my dear grandniece. I know. Tsunade sighed. Also, just to remind you that I'm a neutral party, I know. But if all sides come together to fight a common enemy. Eyes widened at my words. Then we're all a neutral party, so I suppose I wouldn't mind bringing out Benihime for some fun. I'm sure she'll enjoy her time out of her scabbard. I can only hope for that to happen. Indeed. While I'm off. Don't know for how long, but I know it'll probably be for quite some time. I smile. It'll be nice for some change, you know. I wish you well, great aunt. Please return to the hidden leaf in good health the next time I see you. Perhaps Naruto will be the one to greet you from this seat. I laugh, not in an offending way but of joy, at Tsunade's words. Yes, after all. His first words to me were, I'm gonna be Hokage. I give a nostalgic smile. You better believe it. Yes, I do, Naruto. Of course I do, my grandson.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.